background. Beautiful. Truly glorious. Unless that's a request, because then I can just go. Truly, we've gotten off to a mature start from the beginning of this. Hey, Genesis. I have been working the past couple hours, and I just thought, well, might as well try streaming it in case anyone is interested. So, or if anyone just wants to talk, it then will make the entire process more fun, at least. I need to start my 1-minute timer. And next time I won't be set up where I'm sitting at the top of the height, the flight height, so it won't be like that. What's your next lyrical lore? Ooh, next lyrical lore. That's a great question. Probably if I'm continuing my order. I have to avoid Stormblood, sadly, because Revolutions and a bunch of that stuff is all Nobuo Uematsu stuff, and they take down videos like that, like no man. Like I'm shocked that my Heaven's Word hasn't been taken down yet. But so with that in mind, I'll probably be skipping right over in having done Wayward Daughter into Shadowbringers, and I think I'll probably do the main stuff. I'll probably do Shadowbringers and like Tomorrow and Tomorrow and that stuff, and then go do Endwalker and Flow and a lot of that stuff, and then go back and do maybe some of the side stuff, some of the trial songs, because not a lot of the trial songs have lyrics. Like some do, but I mean, like I've already done Ultima's song and stuff, so I've already done some of that. Whoa, my favorite Final Fantasy XIV lore channel. Thank you. That is incredibly validating and lovely to hear. So I hope that I can continue to make content that you enjoy. Enjoy stuff like this. It's always really chill. Good. Yeah, the point of this is definitely to be a very, very sort of chill, hanging out content. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to go ahead and ask. Okay, what's a good shot at Sultanatry? I have the one of the Burning Law. The Burning Wall. Let's just get one from down. And we clear the skies. How's that? Yeah. Well, no, now we're missing a little bit of the branch. There we go. That'll do. And start filming. Lolly ho! Good to see you, Vane Dog. But making the lyrical lores is a lot of fun, but also I really have to sit down with them and really be super... I mean, I have to be super careful with the lore videos and stuff anyways, but the lyrical videos mean a lot to me. Like, the songs mean a lot to me, so I want to, like, put my heart and soul into them. And, like, doing Answers Reprise, or the version of it in Endwalker, and what that means. I mean, like, I've already touched on it in a way when I did the Answers 2.0 stuff, but I did that before I had beaten Endwalker, so I didn't actually know how important Answers was going to be to Endwalker. I had only just felt that it was a lot of the themes that ended up paying off in Endwalker were exactly what I had thought they were for years, so... Love seeing the process. Been wanting to make my own videos, so this is really cool. Yeah, awesome. I totally recommend that you should. More people in the space is better, for sure. I'm sure there are more optimal ways to make them, and everyone has their own process, but, yeah. Okay, so we've got 2 of the Sultanatry. That's probably more than enough. I don't really need one Sigil Gate. I'm gonna need some shots of... One of the other things I finally got thanks to Isidoro, we have a server basically up and running where I can upload all our footage to. So I'm actually trying to get really nice and sort of specifically 1 minute long pieces of footage that I can upload to that server. And that are categorized by name and are very easy to just pull from whenever I need to use them for episodes. The only downside is I'm spending all this time doing this now, and I'm gonna have to re-record like all the cutscenes in the game when they do the graphics changes. But it's worth doing it for now, because those graphics changes aren't gonna be for a little bit, and they're not even gonna be really done for at least 2+ years, probably looking more like 3 or 4. Okay, we have the royal plantations, and let's get the plantations, get a shot at the plantations. Something a little bit. Need to really show off those pumpkins. Yeah, it's good enough. Yeah, that should do. Set that up and set the timer. Do you think it's a possibility that one of the future expansions we visit the Shard of the Void? I just did Black Mage story. So yeah, I have talked about this elsewhere, but we are 100% going to the Void. It's just a question of when. There's a lot of storylines that have been setting up going to it, and sort of implying and setting up the ways that it might be reclaimed, fixed. Because it's not just that it's Aether devoid, it's that the Aether there is all astrally aligned and astrally charged. Kind of like how the first was having problems with Aether being umbrally charged. So there's just no question that it's a major plot beat. The question is when. And there's also been a lot of stories kind of hinting at and setting up ways to travel between dimensions, between the shards. And that's a big plot point that's also going on in the background with Y'shtola post 6.0. So, yes, we're definitely going to the shard. It's to the Void. It's just a question of, is that an 8.0 thing, or is that a 9.0 thing? Or, you know, is it maybe even a patch content thing and not an entire expansion in and of itself? Even when the graphic update is out, it'll be nice to be able to look back on content of how things were, like looking up legacy vids. Yeah, that's a really good point, Vane Dog. It'll be nice to, it'll be really nice to have these as a time capsule of what the game used to be like. And then I'm gonna need the dispatch yards. What's the best way to get a shot at the dispatch yard? Do I just want to... I need something more interesting. Let's do this. Let's hide. What was I thinking? That's what I was thinking. Okay, I want the tunnel. It's just a question of making it more interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I like that. WoW filters built in. Yeah. G-Shade. And some other stuff, basically. Dio, if you're interested in the Void, definitely make sure to look into doing something called the Warring Triad. Once you hit level 60, unlocks Void-related story later. You're still playing with the Void and losing yourself to it. It's more to do with the first and crossing between the ability to cross back, for people to cross willfully between the first and the source. And then the fact that there's the role quests and how they all tie into a very specific series of events that also tie into the Warring Triad that Vane Dog is talking about. And so there's just a lot of very explicit, clear setup. It's one of the most clearly set up, telegraphed things other than Mericidia or the New World in terms of like what another patch could be. As far as I'm concerned, there are 4 main things that could be the future expansions that are Mericidia, the New World, going to another shard. So you can call going to the Void, going back to the first, going to some of the other shards. There's a lot of different ways that could play out. And then the last would be something just within the Sea of Stars itself and traveling out into the Sea of Stars. And those are really broad. The other thing is that we still have a lot of Ilsabard to explore. There's lots of parts of Othard we haven't been to. We haven't been to Northern Vilbrand. We haven't been to parts of Eorzea itself, you know, Eorzea is mostly we've been to, but you know, you put that all together and it's like there's so much for this game to do left. Like even when it just comes to the 3 main continents, right? Like Eorzea, which is the most explored, you know, we've been to Pagalthom thanks to dungeons. We've been to Zelflatal thanks to dungeons. You know, Mordona, the Euphrates Flat, Saltmoor. We haven't been to the Far Reach, where the Hellsguard Rogadin are from. That could still be a dungeon or something. We still need to go to the Far Reach. We haven't been to Airslaint, the Rogadin, the Seawolf Rogadin homeland, and the native home of Rogadin. We literally don't even know what's under most of Ilsamard. We know about places like Nalmask. We know about places like Corvos down here. We know that Boja is somewhere over here. We know that, you know, Whirlit's somewhere over here. But there's bunches that we still need to, like, explore and experience under Ilsamard. And then with Othard, we haven't been to Nangxia, which is over here. You know, we haven't really been to most of the Goldmoor jungle or that region in Dalmasca Inferior. We haven't been to the Unpromised. We haven't been to, you know, the Ara, you know, over here. There's lots of things we haven't been just in the 3 great continents. And then you have Mericidia down here, which we just know painfully little about despite how important it is. And the same is the case with the New World over here. So 7.0 is 100%, I will put money on it and guarantee my life. 7.0 is definitely going to be New World or Mericidia, maybe both, but it is going to be, 7.0 is going to be a terrestrial story. What 8.0 is, though, you know, that's anyone's guess, because maybe they'll want to continue doing terrestrial, maybe because if 7.0 is Mericidia and the New World, which I think unlikely, but possible, you know, then 8.0 could easily, you know, then 8.0 has to kind of be something less terrestrial, maybe. But, you know, if we just do Mericidia for 7.0, maybe New World's 8.0. Or maybe because Yoshi P loves switching things up and surprising people, maybe 8.0 then becomes going back to the shards, which would make a lot of sense in terms of the pacing, because the Void has been a major piece of a major lingering thread since A Realm Reborn. And really, I mean, before that with 1.0, but it really is since Realm Reborn. But as a story of something that has not, that clearly there's more to be done there. It's not just it's doomed, whatever. That's been true since Heaven's Word, and especially starting in Shadowbringers. Let's get one more interesting shot from a different angle. Now then you can't see the tunnel. What about seeing the railroad? Yeah, as it goes off. Yeah, I like that. Can't really see the railroad from there. Ah, cursed trees. I'm just gonna get a high vantage point. Oh, forgot to change the weather. Yeah, that's what I want. How's everybody else doing? How's everyone's weekend? It's Saturday, right? Right? Yeah. It is. Still looking for a dentist. New bed. Already has some issues, but dealing. Yeah. Hope you feel better, Bane. cleaned my house all day. Had just sat down to log on when I saw the Discord notification for stream. Weekend is going okay-ish so far. So as someone who also cleaned their house today, I feel you. I hope it feels a little bit cleaner, a little bit more open. And then yeah, my weekend's going okay-ish too. So I hear you. Hopefully it turns up. I know that I am recording another episode of End Talkers with Namiri tomorrow, and that's exciting because we get to get into some Garlemald stuff, and we both have a lot to say about that. I need to go name those files. That's what I need to do. You may not be able to see when I am doing things sometimes because I think I only have it set to record my game screen and not when I like pull up like file viewer and stuff. Okay. Rotations. It does feel good to see the house cleaner for sure. My allergies also thank me. Yeah, I'm lucky that I have foregone most allergies, but it is still... It was 20 degrees today, which is warmer than it has been, and 20 degrees Fahrenheit, not Celsius. But it's supposed to start getting 50 degrees consistently next week, which I'm looking forward to finally being able to go outside. Boss. I definitely unexpectedly popped in on that. Oh boy. I was not prepared to fight. Hopefully I should do enough damage to get credit. Do I even need a Realm Reborn once? I feel like I do, but I can't remember why. I know I need Heaven's Word and Stormblade. Luckily I got all the Endwalker stuff, so I don't have to worry about that. I think I have all of the Shadow Wars. Sweet. Behold, massive foe. I see someone has been playing Elden Ring. Oh my god, I played 80 hours of that game in the first four to 5 days of it being out. And then once I beat the final boss, I set it down and got back to work. But it was a crazy few days on that. But then again, that's how I play everything. Like I beat Endwalker in the first 3 days of it being out because I am incapable of not just diving headlong into stuff. It was almost 80 here yesterday, then the temp dropped and it snowed. Back to the 60s, 70s this coming week, though. Super interested to hear what you and Aniri had to say on Garlemald. Yeah, well, I mean, that's always crazy. Like, and that'll happen here too, but it won't be that drastic. We won't be going into the 80s. We'll be going like maybe into like the 60s one day, and then the next day it's snowing, and then back to 60. But that's a crazy week. Yeah, me and Naniri have a lot of thoughts from a bunch of different angles, both from real-world history, from the Eorzean history, from Hydaelyn's history on it, but from the Garlean's history too. And there's just so much to say about the way in which they encapsulate so much stuff there. And the nice thing is that we might have to record a shorter one. Usually we go like 5 or 6 hours for a recording session, but we have to cut it down because of something I have to do. But the thing is that we get to start with the coming together of Eorzea in the Grand Company of Eorzea, and then we get to move into Garlemald. And the beauty with which the story earned getting to that point. Like, Endwalker pays off what has been built to, rather than just starting something, right? Like, and it's just... I'm really excited to talk about it. We're also the 5th map, which, I mean, we have quite a few episodes till we get to. The 5th map, me and Naniri are going to be talking about for at least 4 or 5 episodes. It's going to be like, there's going to be at least 10 to 15 hours of us just talking about that 5th map. In terms of the wash, There's the wash and the watch. How do I want to... I'll just get a shot of it from... I want to shot both. No. Because I want to go into the watch, so when I transition between them in the video. You seem completely immune to sleep when the game came out. Yeah, I'm lucky that my passion for the game carries me through any amount of needing to sleep. I do pay for it later, though. However, I'm often dealing with either depressive episodes or anxiety, and so I'm often just tired regardless. So being a little bit actually tired sometimes is nice, because then I don't feel like I'm wasting my time sleeping. It's like, no, I desperately need to sleep. See, I don't need those guys in frame. Yeah, ooh, okay, that's better. It's a little too much. I just want the watch in there itself, and I can just leave that. Closer. If I go by that brazier, it should be good. What about that? Yeah, I can work with that. I heavily relate to those episodes. You have my sympathy. Thank you. Yeah, I'm definitely not alone. And sometimes there's solace in that. Sometimes I just feel sad for everyone else, because as much as it's great to be able to have people who can empathize rather than just sympathize, you know it only comes because they've had to suffer for it, which sucks. I know that I'd be able to get a lot more videos done a lot faster. Also, I honestly, it's part of, like, I'm kind of dealing with being very tired this past week and down, and so that's one of the reasons I'm actually throwing on the stream, is I know I'm not going to be hyper efficient, and I know I'm going to be less efficient with the stream going, but I can take advantage of the stream, talk to you guys, and still get some work done. And my my philosophy tends to be just keep putting a foot in front of you, one foot in front of the next. And so while I'll definitely get less done than if I was being able to be full steam ahead, and as long as I'm getting something done, as long as you're moving forward, that's the key. Because it gets much harder when you just when you stop even trying to move forward, and it's super easy to get overwhelmed. Whereas if you kind of keep with the process, it's a lot easier to... you still feel overwhelmed, it's still super hard, but there's more likely to be momentum that you can carry you through. And I'm pretty sure most people feel the same way. Most people feel like as long as they can get started, it becomes a lot easier to... Or maybe not most, but a lot of people I know. Absolutely. I hate it for others because I know how it feels to be there. Even if the streaming slows your workflow, hopefully it gives you company that a lot of us need. Absolutely. I hope that, like, the thing is as long as a couple of you are on and having fun with this, or it's nice background noise, or it's, or you have a question, or you like seeing the process, or if it serves a value, then it's totally worth it, right? And it's that easy. Okay. Maybe I do like... Let me get a single shot of this from top left, and then I'm going to get a shot of them together, because I don't even actually think a shot of them in isolation is that good. Okay, Geyser. Come on, Old Faithful. Go off. I need to see that. Okay, yeah. Okay. It's also one of those funny things where, Exonme said, oh, I'm one of their favorite 14 lore content creators, which, one, thank you. Two, whether that's true or not, and I'm not casting any aspersions either way, that is something that is also really interesting to contend with and deal with, because as far as I'm concerned, even though I have 3,000 plus subscribers, I'm still a dude in my room making videos. So like, it's hard to take any amount of loving and generous and wonderful support and kind words and make it and really internalize it, because the second I turn the stream off, right, the second I go do something else, I'm just me and I was just doing dishes upstairs, and so that dissonance is really interesting. Like, genuinely, it's fascinating. Good. And then let's get one of those two. Let's get one of the candles out together. That's a good angle. Straight on. Okay, let's wait for the geyser to go off. It's an in shot. So now there's the one. That's definitely a shot. Nope. Get it down from down. I already have one where I'm angled up that way for this. Let's become Neary, because funnily enough, if you want to get the lowest shots, you actually have to be a well low. No, I want the NPCs. Okay, and that's gonna make it look small. Obviously, I don't want to be all the way zoomed in because I want to see the camp. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. I kind of want to apologize for not following up on my comment on the End Talkers episode, by the way, since you left it open for me to reply with the characters I was referring to. I do trust you in the near. Yeah, no. You okay, one. You're saying a lot of the same things I would say to a content creator too, so I relate. But no, nothing to apologize for. It was meant as an invitation, regardless. I also understand when, like, Endwalker meant a lot to me. Like, it's one of the only and who was I talking to about this? I talked to a couple people, but I definitely was talking to someone about this. But Endwalker is the first. I've always had an existentialist mindset, and I have always had a fear of death and oblivion, and Endwalker is the first piece of media that managed to ever give me any solace around that. Not necessarily that it took away, that fear, not that it took away the dread, but the existential dread, but it gave me solace because of its emphasis on the journey is the point, in a way that was not sophistry. It was not being like, oh, the journey is the point, but through a bunch of different characters, a bunch of different lenses, through a bunch of different emotions, meaningfully living by and communicating that idea and that feeling through a bunch of different perspectives. So I understand, one, the idea of Endwalker meaning a whole hell of a lot to someone, or just like any of 14 or any story, and then also the way in which that can be really hard when other people, not just when other people criticize it, but when other people it did not move them, or they do not care for it, or they think something that really moved or meant something to you is bad. And then the concern around other people maybe not granting it, I would put it as courtesy, really, but just a compassion, right? Like, even if something's bad, I tend to be far more interested in why it's bad and what's interesting about it than just being like, it's crap, it doesn't make sense, And if something really doesn't make sense, even then I think that's worth interrogating in a way that's not, it's dispassionate in a bad way, right? Because there's dispassionate in a good way, which is kind of just more removed, but there's also dispassionate in a bad way. Unempathetic is more what I'm getting at. James C. Hello, I just wanted to pop in and say my thanks for all your awesome videos. They're fun to watch and learn lore from in a concise and engaging way. Thanks, James. That makes me feel wonderful. So thank you so much. I'm glad you enjoy them. I hope my future content continues to be enjoyable. I try to make sure that they are, everyone tries to make their stuff well written, right? But I try to make sure, one of the priorities for me is making sure they are sort of concise and the information is not sort of much rambly. Because it's not that there isn't a bunch of value in some ways to rambling, or that sounds bad. It's not that there's a bunch of value to going longer form content. I mean, we make longer form content on this channel, with the lore talks, but creating a structure so it doesn't feel like you're lost in the weeds or that like you're having to search through to find what you're specifically looking for was definitely a goal going in for the channel. Sometimes honestly in a negative way, because a lot of times I'll have cut out pieces of information or context, or not context, but content that I feel like is superfluous, but but other people would care to have known, or they actually, they don't want a 4-minute episode, they want a 10-minute episode, so. But thank you so much for your kind words. It really does mean quite a lot to me. And like I was saying earlier, working in a vacuum, it's very easy to get in your own head and feel like, do people enjoy this? Are people watching this? Do people care? Despite, hundreds, if not thousands of people watching some of my videos, despite 1,000 subscribers, like, I am incredibly lucky. I am incredibly lucky that people have meaningfully enjoyed and engaged with my content. But at the same time, it's still really easy to be in your head. It's one of those things where you get 100 dislikes or 100 likes and 1 dislike, and the thing you remember is the dislike. And yeah. Okay, we did Fesca's Wash, Royal Plantations. Let's do. Still need to do Soot Creek, but let's do still the excavation site, because that's a lot of important footage. I actually might need to take some extras of those for a bunch of different videos, because if you understand this, you understand a lot about the history of Hydaelyn, or at least some really important key periods in Hydaelyn, specifically post-Beldia, whichever you prefer, and especially modern Ul'dah, which actually me and Ninieri have a lore talk coming out about early Hydaelyn history, and then we have a lore talk about modern Hydaelyn history coming out at some point. Whenever they're end up being scheduled to come out, because I'm working on I'm working on the lore talks at the same time that I'm working on this, that I'm working on, I'm writing, editing, and doing it all. So things get out when they get out, but I always try to have them done ahead of schedule. But it means that sometimes it can take hours and hours and many hours to get a lore talk done, because I have to edit the audio and get the footage. So it makes more sense to push them off compared to doing a short, which can take less time. Yeah, that seems right. Do I need to... What about cameras? Oh, kind of like it better zoomed in. Yeah, we're going to go with that. That's a good shot. And... Explain me! I need more lore! So... God, this is the other problem, is like I get used to talking with Ninieri and other people who know things, so I forget what to recount that's important versus what people already know, yada yada. So Sildi and Beldia, or Sildi and Ul'dah, were sister cities during post-969 of the 6th Astral Era. And they came out of the fall of Beldia, which was a nation-state that was founded in the early part of the 6th Astral Era, that was created by remnants of the Maki who survived the flood that was the 6th Umbral Calamity. That's kind of the lineage. What happens is that Sildi and Ul'dah go to war, and then Ul'dah destroys Sildi by creating the traitor Spurn, which is basically a powder that turns people into zombies. And then they chuck that into Sildi and pretend like, oh, Sildi made it themselves. They destroyed themselves. This is actually all hubris. So Sildi falls, and Ul'dah moves its capital, and moves it to on top of where Sildi used to be. So if you actually see Sildi's, this aqueduct or this underground passage for part of the Sildi Calgomes is here, but Ul'dah is right here, right? So it's not that Ul'dah was here and Sildi was like right here. It's that Ul'dah used to be. We don't actually know where Ul'dah used to be. You could make some informed guesses, but it would have been somewhere outside of Central Hydaelyn. Probably not the Sigoli Desert because it's a harsher environment. Possibly Western Hydaelyn because it's coastal and has more vibrant stuff. And there's also remnants of Beledian and or Carnian civilizations in the Footfalls, Silent King area. Probably not, though. We just don't know where old Ul'dah would have been. And we also don't know where Beledia would have been. So Ul'dah moves its capital on top of Sildi, and basically, so the ruins of Sildi are taken over. But then what happens is that the people who created the Traitor Sperm, the people who created the Traitor Sperm, the Sultan of the time, gets caught by a guy named Thorn. And he is like, what the ever-loving fuck, and reveals the truth about the Traitor Sperm to everyone. And they throw the Sultan in jail, and Thorn takes over for about 200, 300-ish years. And that creates what's called the Thorn Dynasty. And that's actually tied to Little Lady's Days. One of his descendants is tied to Little Lady's Days. So that actually might pop up in 2 days when Little Lady's Days begin. But, so the Thorn Dynasty rules for that period of time. And then, after a couple hundred years, they give the power back to the Sultanate because they were only ever kind of stewards. And then the Sultanate has ruled since. Side note, kind of crazy, we first get this incredibly important Sildee zombie lore largely explained from Hildy Freakenbrand's questline. Yes, Hildebrand's questline goes into it quite a bit. And it's one of those things, so you have to be careful. Like, if you play part of a story in 14, you could be like, oh, this is obviously what happened because someone said it. So, like, in the early part of A Realm Reborn, it's stated, by a bunch of different characters that Sildee destroyed itself with the Traitor Sperm. But that isn't what happened, and it wasn't just a retcon. Like, they clarify this later in ARR if you do certain side quests and things. But you always have to be careful to not just take things at face value in 14, because unreliable narrators are a thing, and not in a way where the writers are lazy, in a way where the writers are clearly intentional about their stuff. So that's why I always want to be very careful about, definitive statements. That was such a mood. I have one friend who plays, and he just isn't big into the lore as I am, even though he loves it. So I always have to over-explain things to him. Yeah. Yep. I have not... I don't want to say... It's not actually a bad habit, but I have the tendency to either wax lackadaisically once I begin, or try to refrain from spewing out everything. And so a lot of times one of the things I'll first ask people is like, okay, what do you know, or what context do you have that I can sort of build off of rather than just starting from zero? Yeah, I turned off the record. Okay, so I got a shot of Sildee up here. I want a profile, not profile shot, a long way shot. I want the waterfall. It's gonna be too far away. Maybe if let's see what happens if I increase the, not aperture, but, okay, wait, this might work. Yeah, okay, I like that. Okay. And get rid of the cursor. But yeah, so Sildee is really important to understanding. I mean, the thing about Thanalan history is that every civilization in Thanalan's history is important to understanding Thanalan's history because of the way in which they all intertie with Karn and Mach. Well, not Mach, because Mach's not Thanalan, but Karn, Beladia, Ul'dah, Sildee. And so... Yeah, it's one of those ironic things, too, where we have a lot about these places. We also have so little about these places. Like, there's so much we don't know, and I desperately wish we got a, Sildee excavation dungeon. I don't know we'll get this, but what I would really love out of the dungeons from the patch content in 6.x is just going to places that we've already been and revealing more information about those places. So, exploring the Sildee dungeons underground, going to the Far Reach, which we haven't been to, but is in, Abelathias, or just going to a dungeon that's the northern part of Vilbrand, or what's some other good examples? Can't think of anything off the bat, but just stuff like that I would be really excited for. I listened to lore videos while I got to sleep. If I didn't finish it or end up forgetting, just replay it from the start whenever I last remember. Well, thank you. I'm glad that they helped you put to sleep. I don't know that I need to say this, but I find that a badge of honor. I know a couple people who have said that to me. I'm like, that's awesome. That's great that they can act as that for people. As someone who listens to audiobooks and podcasts to go to sleep, that's super great. Yeah, I hope future content helps with that as well. If Square Enix made a lore book, I would buy it one day. I was just talking to, who was I just talking to? I was talking to Zephyr, one of my friends, about this. But I would worry about them creating a lore book. Do you mean Encyclopedia Eorzea Volume 1 and 2? Like, do you mean, because I thought you were going to say a narrative book, but actually, let me go pull out E1. I think it's upstairs. I'll be right back. So, there is 2 lore books. I don't know if you already are aware of them and just mean something slightly different, but there is Encyclopedia Eorzea Volumes 1 and 2, and they are nothing but lore about stuff. E1 is mostly A Realm Reborn and Heaven's Word, and then Volume 2 is mostly Stormblood. We don't have Volume 3 yet. Hopefully we'll get one. Koji and Oda. Koji, the head English localizer and lore aficionado, and then Oda, forgetting his last name, but or first name. Anyways, Oda-san, who is the head lore person there at Dev Team 3. They made these out of mostly passion. Like, as much as they're wonderfully produced, they are basically things that they do on the side. So that's part of why we haven't gotten to Volume 3, because everyone's been so busy over there, and Koji's been working on 16 instead of 14. But hopefully we'll get a Volume 3 soon. And the other thing is that Volumes 1 and 2 were printed in like 2015, 2016, and sometime within the past of quite a few years ago, and then were not reprinted. So they were hard to get a hold of. I actually don't have a physical copy of Encyclopedia Eorzea Volume 1, but they are reprinting Volumes 1 and 2 for the first time that I know of very, very soon. So I think they're coming out in April and March, or March. They might be coming out next month, I think. I forget. So I'd highly recommend grabbing those. They are wonderful sources of information. Some of it is stuff that's already in the game. Some of it is things that's just like literally the Triple Triad text that's for the thing. But they have a bunch of stuff that's really helpful, and sometimes it's just nice to have consolidated. And then they have some things that are like specific to them, but there's nothing in there that's like, oh, if you don't know it, the story doesn't work, or it's nothing like that. It's purely things that are just add a lot of extra depth and flavor. So great for a channel like this. With Koji moving up the Square Enix ladder, I imagine it'll be a while for another one, sadly. Yeah, Disconnect, that's how I felt. What I'll say is, and I am forgetting her name, I keep forgetting her name, her last name's really hard to pronounce, but the new head localizer, she is also into the lore. And there's also other people on the staff who are into the lore. Now, everyone's been busy because of the pandemic and stuff, so I think that we're still, no matter what, it's going to be a while. But what I will say is I think we're far more likely to see... There are other people besides Koji and Oda pushing for it, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see a Volume 3 before Koji, like, really comes back. Because there's a good chance that Koji never fully comes back to 14 because he's used as valuable resources for other localization projects. I don't know. I mean, it's just as possible he could come back. Katie? Yeah, Katie, right? Totally forget her name constantly. I feel terrible about it. I can remember her face, I can remember her pink hair, but I can't... but she did the vast majority of Shadowbringers, they told us, at one of the more recent live letters. And so the fact is, if she localized most of Shadowbringers, and she's interested in lore, she's just as or more qualified than Koji to do a Volume 3 that focuses on Shadowbringers. Now, some people have thought that a Volume 3 would include Shadowbringers and Endwalker, and I just don't see how that's possible, because there's just too much to include. But it's possible. I don't say this as a definitive, it's obviously going to be this way or that way. I just say, like, I would be surprised. I would gladly take it. Yeah. There's also, they're reprinting Chronicles of Light, I believe is what it's called, which is all the compendium of all the short stories. Which I highly recommend reading those if you haven't at the Square Enix website already. Okay. I need to get Rat's Nest. I got CLD. I might need to get a shot Starway. Let me check my book real quick. I'm gonna need to check something. Black Persuasion, Coffin. checking my copy of EE1 right now. No. Yeah, I didn't think that there was an entry on it. Okay. But so I can go for good. So it's the, let me check real quick the sightseeing logs for Rome Reborn though. Because I don't want to miss something. God, I use such a hodgepodge of different resources to keep all my lore in check. We're talking about Central Hydaelyn. So that's going to be C. We got Blackbrush Station, the Ruins of Sildee, and the Gate of Nald. Okay, yeah, no, there's nothing about there might be something in Garland Iron and Garland Tools that I can check to make sure for the Sick Creek, but as far as I can tell right now, that's just a descriptor, and might be actually found as part of talking about Fresco's Watch or the Sylvia excavation site, but not in isolation. So let's get a shot at the Rat's Nest, though, which I just realized is actually a pretty funny name when you think about it, because it's a Cockern. It's a Cockern. It's a Cockern locale, so that's why it's called the Rat's Nest. Because the Cockern are all rat-like. Like, look at them. Okay, what's a good shot? I want a shot of here, from on high. I'm gonna land for a second. Hopefully that'll stop. No, what do you mean I can fly no higher? I'm not even that high. How high can you? You can go so much higher. Why the heck are you saying things like that? Okay. Yeah. I'd take a Norvrend book in a heartbeat. Well, yeah. Tons of pre-flood of light stuff would be very cool. Yeah, I disconnect. I have that exact same feeling about it. That is, honestly, if I had my druthers, I would prefer a Volume 3 to just be about Norvrend, because there's just so much we don't know, especially about pre-flood of light. But I'm happy to wait for an Endwalker stuff. Partly just because it means if I had both, it means I'd have to make a crap ton of content about both, and that would take forever and a half. I'm gonna try a different mount because I don't know why it's giving me that warning constantly, and it's annoying. What's a fun mount? Just use a flying chair. Okay, fuck you. Okay, let's just get this shot quick. Let's see. Position out and in versus. Yeah, it should be good enough. Ah, that is a screenshot button. That is not what I wanted. And set the timer. Okay. The thing is that there's also so many things involved with Endwalker that. Here's the thing: if Endwalker was the book that we got, we wouldn't get the Point X stuff in it, and the Point X stuff is going to tie into a lot of really interesting things about the point, about the 6.0 stuff. Like a lot of the side quests are seeming to do that. So having a Volume 3 be just Shadowbringers would be preferable, because then we'd get everything from the 5.0 and then 5.x patch content. We'd also have a lot more justification for learning more about members of the people of Amarant and stuff, because Endwalker's already come out. So there's a lot of things that they could reveal in a Shadowbringers guide that is Endwalker adjacent material. Now. Okay, that's the minute, and now I can leave. It'd be super juicy to just bring Shadowbringers. Just be Shadowbringers. Yeah. Okay, follow. Yeah, I mean, the thing is I prefer Encyclopedia Eorzean Volume 2 over 1 for a couple of reasons, and most of them come from the fact that it gets to focus on being just about Stormblood and then have some extra stuff, whereas Volume 1 had to carry the weight of all of A Realm Reborn and Heaven's Word. Now, admittedly, I think Volume 1 is a really important baseline, especially all the things it tells us about Eorzean society, whereas Volume 2 isn't just about Thardian society, and it's not just about Alamegan society. And surprisingly, it actually doesn't tell us as much about Thardian and Alamegan society as you'd expect, but it does tell us a lot. We also get a lot of entries about all the jobs, which we get short entries about the jobs, and we don't get just entries about the jobs. We get entries about the jobs' monopolies. We get about their armor, their weapons, which we didn't get anything quite like that in. We got stuff about the jobs, but not the broader stuff around the jobs. And that's where we also got stories like the story of Verdun, which is actually a short that I have coming out. I have like a 1-minute short on Tuesday. That is just the story of these different weapons, which for my money, make the weapons a lot more special if you happen to use them as glamour. Okay, how close do I want to be? I think this is good. Oh, actually, let me enemies only. Are they static? Because if they're static, I think it's probably better to have them. No, they're not, but that's okay. Let's. I don't like how zoomed in that is. I don't like that brush down there. Let's move to the side. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Enemies only. Let's get a little bit. No. Yeah. Yeah, that's what we're going with. Keep doing screenshots instead of. Yeah, a lot of fun lore possibilities. I know that, you know, I literally do this as one of my primary jobs, like creating content and studying lore, and I can barely keep up with everything. Trying to make sure I commit it all to memory too, with the memory issues that I have, is a hell and a half, I'll tell you that. But it is nice to be able to dedicate so much energy to it and justify it for creating content or creating stuff for the channel. But one of the other interesting things too is that I actually don't get to play 14 a lot. Like, I spend a lot of time in 14, like getting footage, doing all sorts of stuff, but I don't actually like get to play 14 all that much because I'm either doing this or working on other stuff, which is kind of sad. And part of why I'm trying to do more of the community live streams is, one, I like the idea of people being able to, if they have goals that they want to accomplish but can't do it without help, having that help. And also, I know that I'll definitely get to play at least 2 hours of the game every week. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Probably gonna have to get. I'll just use B-roll of the actual Cutter Cry dungeon. Oh, speaking of, I should go name my files. Cutter's Cry B-roll 1. Rat's Nest 1. That's driving me crazy. Let's return to Charlene for a second. One day we'll beat the Heaven on High Tower. Yes, one day we'll beat it. I mean, we've been like hamstringing ourselves, right? Because we keep going in with people, at least one person or two people who have relatively low Empyrean weapons and stuff and armor. So, you know, it's not surprising. We've done pretty well. I'm just mad that time that I got to floor like 97 or 98 solo and almost got to the top solo. So close. I really want that title of Lone Hero, but I just don't have the time to justify it, doing a bunch of it. supposed to be Black Widow? I don't know that it's supposed to be, but can't help but think that. Okay, what are materia prices like today? Yeah, I don't know why I would click on that. Nope. How about one of these? It's low, but not quite low enough. Come on, sub 1,000. Nope. Oh, hell yes. That I will gladly take. So, 16.1 rolls around, I am going to convert all the materia and stockpiling. And then I will take that materia, and I will sell it. At a reasonable, like, not like a huge markup or anything, but just like demand's going to be huge. Because 6.1, new gear, people get access to the Alliance Ring catch-up mechanic, yada, yada, yada. And then I will take that gold and I will buy my 50 million gil Namazutos at long last. I just had to spend 25 million gil to buy the Ronkin mount because I needed it for a video. I needed one of the gold mounts for a video. Keeping up with all the lore in any setting is a lot. At least Final Fantasy XIV lore is a bit more digestible than something like Xenogears lore. Yeah, 14 does a really good job of making it digestible and making it approachable, and also only as necessary as is hyper relevant to the story. Ergo, you are rewarded for digging deeper, but you are not required in such a way that it's not like, oh, it doesn't matter. It matters. It's just there's a deep understanding that storytelling is not lore and lore is not storytelling, but they can both really help boost each other with this team. And so, I mean, like, just think about the fact that Endwalker takes time to kind of, not re-explain, but re-explain certain fundamental key mechanics and really, in an interesting way, with, like, how Aether works, without making you feel dumb about it. Only because of how relevant that is as a piece of information, not because it's going to do a whole diatribe about Aether for the sake of it. But because you have to kind of understand the fundamentals about Aetherology in order to make sense of the primary plot of Endwalker, but not in a way that's overly obtuse. More just in a way that's like, yeah, sometimes you just need baseline information. Let's get those. Did I miss any other materia? I think that's it. I'm not doing any materia. Okay. Hopefully, that will help me get my, Oh, hey, there's Baba. Okay, back to Hydaelyn. I just typed in launch instead of laugh. Back to Hydaelyn. Actually, is there any interesting B-roll that I need elsewhere? I mean, I do need B-roll from Endwalker, but I am not gonna put that on just in case there's anyone watching who has not beaten Endwalker and or Shadowbringers. Oh, one of the points I was making earlier about places to go, right? We have not been to Ogomoro, the, like, northern half of Vilbrand. Like, this entire island, this entire section over here, we just haven't been to yet. So, like, we could go there, we could go to the Far Reach over here, been to Paglethon as a dungeon for 5.x, we went to Zelthatal as a dungeon for 3.3, I think? That sounds right. Yeah. Gonna peace out and play some Guardians of the Galaxy before bed. Thanks for the stream, Elio. Look forward to see what footage is used for. Yeah, thanks for joining, Vane Dog. Appreciate it. There's also, I'm forgetting what it's called. I cannot read it, it's too faded, but this island, these islets, could be an interesting dungeon. Or Cape Meat, that'd be pretty fun. Actually, sorry, that's Cape Meat. This is, I am forgetting. I know a lot of parts of geography on Eorzean, but some of the places that we just haven't been to, we have very little about. The West Shroud concept art and the Baldesion X has me hoping maybe one day. Yeah! Yeah. It's such an interesting... Let's go look at the Baldesion Annex art real quick, because actually I think there's some interesting conversation points there that are just fun to talk about that people may or may not realize. And if you're not aware, all the art in the Baldesion Annex is concept art, or art that was used in Encyclopedia Eorzean Volume 1, which I guess is the same thing. Oh, nope, that's my room. I want to go to the Annex. There's so much we can explore. It leaves so much for my theory brain to work with. Oh my god. Like, if we never went anywhere else, just the things we know about, there's so many theories. There's so many theories that I want to cover that I've started to write scripts about that I just haven't had time to get to yet, partly because I also kind of moved pseudo-chronologically through the story. Like, if you notice, I've been doing all the Dungeons of Order, been focusing mainly on Realm Reborn era stuff, you know, some later stuff as well. But, you know, you can do Rika stuff, you've got Allegan stuff, you've got, you know, St. Coinax Find, Shroud, App of Lothard, the stories of the Mughals and the first Astral Era. Give us a high-res map already, damn it! Yep. Crystal Tower concept art. Map of the Sky Pirates in the Sea of Clouds. Just a big old picture of Garuda. Eorzean. Spatial chart. I know, where did this show up originally? Oh, I forget where this showed up originally. But one of these days I want to actually go get some zoomed in pictures and see if I can try to translate some of the text here. Because, man, the West Shroud looks cool. And there was that 1.0 Gelmoran, probably closed dungeon from 1.0 in the West Shroud. I'll take more Gelmor stuff. Yeah, that, oh! Thank you, Disconnect. That's another thing, is we need to explore more Gelmoran stuff. Now, granted, we already have Tempera. We already have the, you know, Palace of the Dead. We do have Gelmoran things, but more Gelmora, more about Scala, more about, you know, all the missing civilizations that existed during the 5th Astral Era, because we know about multiple civilizations that existed at the early parts of the 5th Astral Era that by the time of Mach, Amdapor, and Nim were kind of no more. There's like Scala being one of those. Gelmora is 6th Astral Era, but there's just, I mean, we know crap all about the 4th Astral Era, and despite knowing a heck ton about Allag, we know kind of, again, with the 3rd Astral Era and with Allag, we know a lot and nothing all at the same time. Couldn't tell you much about the 2nd Astral Era. We only know, like, some of the Umbral Calamities we don't even have any records about. We only know because of process of elimination. And in order, they were a calamity of wind, a calamity of lightning, a calamity of fire, a calamity of earth, a calamity of ice, a calamity of water, and then a calamity of astral. And then the 8th calamity would have been a calamity of umbral. What a 9th calamity would have been is anyone's guess. It could have been a repeating of the cycle. Who knows? Yeah, West Shroud looks super cool. Honestly, I really want to go to Ogamoro. I'm surprised that there isn't footage of it or concept art of it anywhere in here. Although I guess I don't think that there is. All the art I know of it are CG renders from like 1.0 and stuff, or from like the 1.0 trailer and stuff. So I don't actually know if there is concept art of them. We know a lot and nothing at the same time. Sally describes a lot of 14 lore. Yeah, and I would also say it sadly and wonderfully describes a lot of 14 lore, because it's not from lack of them giving us stuff, it's just from there's so much to give and there's such a wealth of it. I also point out that selfishly, the simultaneous dearth and wealth of 14 lore allows for channels like mine to exist. Because we simultaneously have to consolidate all the lore there is and also make connections between things that may not be readily apparent. Calamity of Steel? I mean, they seem elementally aligned with the elemental aspects of Aether, so I don't think so, because I don't even know what that would mean to have an aspected... Because Steel is just an aspecting of Earth, really. But it's a cool thought. That's definitely certain. Okay, let's get back to filming. was gonna do some writing, but honestly my brain's just not there, and also trying to write and talk at the same time is not. One of the other things that struggles with sometimes, like, so we have like viewers, right, who love the really long episodes or fall asleep to the episodes. So doing long episodes is good, but it takes a ton of time to create an hour or 90-minute long episode, both writing and footage. But so I have a thing where I'm doing about the geography of Hydaelyn. So do I make a couple 20-minute episodes about, you know, Western Hydaelyn 20 minutes, Central Hydaelyn 20 minutes, and do that for each zone? Well, that gives me a bunch of videos, which probably gets me more views. And, you know, makes my life easier because that's over a week of content right there. But a lot of people really like the long content. And so putting them together into one big thing where it's, you know, 20, 20, 20. So that's, you know, like 3 split places alone. I mean, probably not 20 minutes, probably more like, you know, 10 minutes. So it's more like 30 minutes. And then, you know, it's like a 50-minute piece for everything. You know, it's a constant, interesting decisions to be made. Isn't ice and water the same thing, only in different forms? Saying this by IDK if there was an ice-water calamity to begin with. Yes, so the 5th Umbral Calamity was a calamity of ice, and the 6th Umbral Calamity was a calamity of water. Basically, the world froze over in an extreme ice age for the calamity of ice, and the world flooded during the calamity of water. Here's the thing. One thing is you could argue that isn't everything just an expression of energy, or everything an expression of Aether. And the way I would point to it is think about the 6 elemental aspects of Aether, and also just check out my Aetherology video that kind of explains a lot of this. But the 6 elemental aspectings of Aether are basically polar directions in which it can be attuned. So imagine if there were only 6 periodic elements, right? And you could have a molecule, and that molecule could be made up of any single element in a chain, or it could be multiple elements in a chain. And so while in our understanding of energy and the world, water and lightning being the same thing, well, I mean, you could argue that aren't fire and lightning just expressions of extreme amounts of energy? The important thing, I think, is within the confines of the physics of 14 is that there is a differential aspecting in that one is representative of, you know, well, actually, they're both representative of the umbral alignment, but they're representations of different aspects of life. In that ice is representation of, one way you could think about it is ice is representation of cold and fire is representation of heat, whereas, and then earth is a representation of stability and lightning is a representation of destruction. These are just me making this up out of nowhere. This is not quite specifically the game. In a classical sense, I think the idea is to think about them elementally, the same way that in classical Grecian thought, right, there was air, fire, water, and earth. And, well, you know, or like there's the Chinese, which is like, what, wood, earth, metal, fire, and water? Maybe? I forget. But the point being, well, why is earth different than metal? And I think it's more about just how you consider it. I don't know if that's just a bot, but thank you for the comment. So I would phrase it to think about it in a classically elemental way rather than a physics way from a modernist perspective. Because as far as we know, Aether itself is a stand-in for energy. That, like, there is no thing below Aether that is energy. Aether is what is energy. You can also point out that if metal is a representation of the aspecting of Earth, you know, is metal a representation of the aspect of Earth because it's under that umbrella, or because it's a combination of different aspectings? You know, you also then have the umbral and astral alignment, which drastically changes things, because, like, what constitutes astral ice and what constitutes umbral fire? And one way you could define it is you could look at umbral fire being lava, but you could also argue that lava is actually more of a representation of Earth and fire aspected Earth. That's a whole different combination, you know. But, you know, umbral being the prevention of movement of Aether, the slowing of Aether, and astral being the rampant change and movement of Aether. And so it's more about the expression of that Aether rather than it is. As much as elemental alignments are clearly a thing, in some ways you could argue them as more descriptive than prescriptive, if that makes sense. and that the attribution of water and ice, while in many cases literal, could also in some cases be more figurative, and therefore the terminology is somewhat flawed. Aetherology defo starts to get weird if you stare at it too hard. Yeah, I mean, that too disconnect. Or you could just say that and skip all the things I just said. But, yeah. Okay, oh, why am I in Western Daemon? I think I came here by default because I just, mind, So one of the interesting things about the runes here is that if you look at them, is that these symbols look a lot like the statues of Nald and Thal, interestingly enough. And then you also have the symbols of Azima, which we know Karn worshipped, and also Beladiah has its own relationship with. Also just go through real quick some of the other locations here for the fun of it and to make myself remember them more clearly. So one thing is you got the Sunrise Gate. Wait. Yes. Sunrise Gate is here, where you can watch the sunrise, and then you have the Sunset Gate, which is here. Now, the thing I don't understand about the Sunset Gate is that ostensibly, it's clearly, it tells you this is the Sunset Gate, right? But then it also turns into Horizon's Edge immediately, which makes me think that the gate itself up there is the Sunset Gate. Does it just change again here? It doesn't. But the thing about the Sunset Gate is it's stated that you can see the sunset. Now, if we assume that this is the gate as well, if we assume that this is the gate as well, then I guess it kind of makes, yeah, then you can. You know what? It actually does work. It totally works. But you have to assume that this down here is the gate rather than just that up there. Because otherwise you're standing up there and you're just like, I see nothing but rock. The last thing I want to talk about, or actually there's two final things I want to talk about here that I find funny and or interesting. And that is the Hammerlea area, which is over here, which is these things, which you could easily be mistaken for like ceruleum extractors, but one, there's no ceruleum in Western Daemon. Secondly, what they actually are is they're giant hammers that pound the earth flat in order to, so that in the future rich people can build houses here. Now, that's all well and good, kind of fucked up, very old op, but what I can't seem to figure out is how they're supposed to do that when they are built on static mountings and structures. So you can see this hammer, it rises up and then it pounds into the ground. It pounds the pylon to flatten the land. Okay, but it's just hitting the same spot over and over again. How are you supposed to move this? How is this supposed to function? I am baffled. The other funny thing is this. So we've got the Beacon Hill Lighthouse here, and Beacon Hill, which is cool, interesting, it has its own history. But it has a normal door here. But if you look up, it's got doors up top. Now, one, this was created before flying was in A Realm Reborn. The other thing worth noting is that what I'm about to show you makes sense if you think about they wanted to create force perspective. But what happens when you fly up here is all these doors are tiny. All of them. All of them are like half-size doors. Now, is that because the devs decided that when you're down here, you're not going to be able to see them? Why if you make them full-size, this entire thing needs to be much bigger, and so you would need to make this entire thing way, way larger, and they didn't want to do that for various reasons? It's quite possible. Another thing that might have happened, though possibly unlikely, but is my preferred version of the theory, is that this is designed for only Lalafels to use. Because if you notice as a here, I do not fit. But if I get on a smaller amount so I can make it easier to see. But if I get up here as a Lalafell, you'll notice it's the perfect size for a Lalafell as a door. Which makes sense for the region too, right? Like you'd think the Dunes folk would be primarily running these things. And if that's the case, well, you know, it's not actually that weird of a theory. So I embrace that as my primary That is my justification for why the doors are the way they are. They are definitely Lalafell doors. They use it to hide from predators who would try to swoop in and eat them. Sadly, as far as I know, that's only on the South Sea Isles, the vultures that were so big that they would just pick up Lalafells and take them off. But you know what, to be fair, there's some creatures that I think there's some side quests even in Western Thanalin that kind of reference stuff like that. So you're probably right. Like that, that's still a warrantable. But yeah, this lighthouse got built because the Silver Bazaar used to be a major hub of trade for Ul'dah and Western Thanalin. But its waters are very shallow. So Vesper Bay, which is over, not this, but over behind this rock, which is a deep water bay, ended up becoming the main hub for trade. And now the Silver Bazaar is kind of like started to die out, and all the people there were desperate. So it used to be that this was a very wealthy area, and they put their money together to build this lighthouse. Before this lighthouse would here, there would just be Lalafell that would get to the top and light giant bonfires so ships could see it out to sea. Geographically, we are right here in Western Thanalin, which sits right here in terms of it sits over in here. I mean, it kind of sits over in here, really. It's not clear if this is supposed to be Nafka as well, or because there's more done up here. So, but it's here. So, but then we have the Rotano Sea and the Strait of Merlthor right here, and this is what connects Vilbrand to Thanalin. So that's why there's a lot of mercantile trade going in Vesper's Bay, because over this way is Vilbrand. I don't know if that's supposed to be Vilbrand and that little thing is supposed to be Ogomoro, but yeah, cool stuff. Cool stuff. I mean, this is just a Realm Reborn lore too. Like, this is. There's so much of this game. This is not even to speak about the lore of just Ul'dah proper. You know, or that's just covering some of the Footfalls and parts of, you know, Hammerlea. But then we still have the Cape Westwind, Moondrip, Prada's Peace. Parda's Peace? And then, if you haven't already, you should check out my video on the Sins of Sasimo, because the history of these steps alone is sad and tragic and being kind of beautiful. Okay. Back to Central Thanalin. I also need to do a video on the Gold Saucer lore. Okay, I need to do Coffer and Coffin. Do I want to do that from the inside, or do I want to do that from the outside? I want to do... Let's do that. Let's do one from the outside and then one from the inside. Oh. I want that cactus. I want that cactus in the shot. Honestly, a Realm Reborn lore is way too unexplored for its own good. Hopefully some of the 6x1 patch context can bring us back around to those parts. Yeah, Disconnect. I don't know if you were there earlier, but I was saying the exact same thing. I deeply, deeply hope that there's a lot of things that could be explored in 6.x, and since we're supposed to be an adventurer, my hope is that 6.x dungeons will almost universally be things on Othard, Ilsabard, and Eorzea, which, I mean, that's not a big ask, seeing as that's the vast majority of land in the game, but especially Eorzea and, you know, maybe one or two in Othard, because there's so many places in Othard that we could go, especially in northern and northwestern Othard. Let's begin the recording. But, yeah, just adore a Realm Reborn lore. Let me check something real quick. What is... I did not realize... Oh, let's not do that. That's a little better. They seem to have very obviously set up Endwalker in such a way where we aren't going to be stuck. Where we aren't going to be stuck in cosmic scale stuff forever. Yeah. So one, they expressed that a long time ago. They expressed before I think Endwalker came out that was going to be the case. But especially Endwalker, both by the devs outside of Endwalker and also literally Endwalker itself makes it incredibly explicit that terrestrial-based stuff is the plan for at least 6.x to 7.0. There's just no question, which is the right call, 100%. Because not that I don't love the cosmic stuff, but you can only do so much of that before you reduce the scope and scale of the world around you, for one, and also before it just kind of becomes, cool, but whatever. I think Endwalker. The other thing is that the type and the style and type of otherworldliness and or cosmic-ish stuff in Shadowbringers and Endwalker is so different that it's not as much of it's not as wearying. It doesn't feel like we really had two expansions where it's the same thing. It's two expansions with and also Endwalker deals with Thavnair, Garlemald. Like we had and Mare Lamentorum's interesting because Mare Lamentorum is literally cosmic in a sense, but also is actually deeply terrestrial in another. But yeah, you definitely have your Thavnair, your Labyrinthos, and your Garlemalds. So at least Endwalker is not all spent outward. And the thing is that Shadowbringers is Stranger in a Strange Land, and as much as it's otherworldly, it's not just cosmic. And so I think they've done a really good balance with that so far. I'm definitely excited for 6.1, Newfound Adventure, and there's just so many different ways they could play it. And I'm excited for whichever way they play it. That's the thing, is I'm just thrilled. The thing is that they set up so many narrative beats for Mericidia and so many narrative beats that they could use for, and characters on both cases, in both examples, for the New World. So I don't know, man. I don't know. Let's get one inside. Is that gonna work? Not really. Is it gonna work? Ooh, yeah, that's gonna work. How's that? Yeah, that's it. I do love how much Endwalker explicitly calls out the fact, like, oh man, that if you played Endwalker, you know what scene I'm talking about, but that scene towards the end when our friend mentions all those different places and locales, a bunch of those places and locales, actually, that guy down below is seeable. There we go, that'll do. Let's restart the timer. All those locales and places are actually, not all of them, many of them, the vast majority of them are mentioned, referred to, or obliquely regarded somewhere in the MSQ side quests or Encyclopedia Eorzea. So many of them I was so psyched when they referenced. And then on top of that, when we got some of the ones that we had been hinted in very oblique ways in the past were also very exciting. I desperately want to see Tiamat again, so I really do hope we get to see Mericidia soonish. Yep, it's only a matter of time. The thing is that, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go, while we talk about this quick, I'm gonna go Mare Lamentorum so I can point this out on the globe. Sea of Stars. I will just be looking at the planet from the sky. I will not be deeply investigating or going through Mare Lamentorum. So if you have not completed Endwalker, you should not have to worry. Also, I freaking adore the music of Mare Lamentorum. I will also keep that camera angled up so that you do not see anything on the map, just in case. But yeah, Genesis, I want to see Tiamat again too. I also want to see Azjaha though, and the thing is that they are. I want to say definitely, because probably not definitely, because we haven't heard of them other than Endwalker and an oblique reference to them. We know Tiamat and Bahamut went to Mericidia. We have no reference to Ajah going to Mericidia, and therefore I would not assume that they are there, and that they are most likely in the New World. And I desperately want to know what's going on with them. And so I also really want to go to the New World. Like, there's a bunch of reasons I really want to go to the New World. So in a way, they just kind of can do no wrong. But we also still need to go to Hingashi. We haven't been to Hingashi proper. We've been to Kugane, but like that's the Dejima of Hingashi. It's not. We haven't been to the Aras. We haven't been to the Unpromised. We haven't been to the, they reference what's north of the blind frost. There's just so many things for us to do. So many. Okay, so if we look at the planet here, okay, right now, so you can see Eorzea. You can see that's Vilbrun there. That's Eorzea. And then, if I move the planet, you can see. Sadly, there's no easy way to really see here. Actually, let me do this. That's a little bit better. So there's no really easy way to move where the light is, sadly. But you've got Eorzea right here. It's Vilbrun. And if I move to the left, this is the New World. This is the southern. Oh, I wish the light was different. But this is the southern part of the New World. There's a northern continent. This is basically South America right here. And then this is North America up here. Then let's rotate back the other way because I'll be more familiar. So that's Eorzea. That's Ilsabard right here. Thabner right there. And then down here, this is Mericidia. All the way down here. Let's see if I can. Yeah, this huge island with this other island right over here. Then you've got Othard over here. And some other islands over there. And then you've got Hingashi right here. And then you cross back over this way and you reach the other, from across the glass ocean, you reach the New World. So if you go to the New World and then keep going left, you would hit Hingashi. And so the New World is enormous. The New World is as big as the 3 great continents combined, basically. And Mericidia itself is also enormous. Mericidia is bigger than Eorzea. And so there's just they could all have their own expansion, which is why I don't think we'd get an expansion where we got both, because there's just too much to do. But also it'll be really interesting to see the cadence of how they release them. We also still need to go to the vast majority of Ilsabard, which is covered in cloud cover still for our maps. Like the Corvos here, and the Corvosi Narrow, and the Anchorite at Corvos is so important. It's so important. The other thing is, we still haven't dealt with all the remnants of Garlemald. We still have characters like, we don't have Noah Gabranth because he was killed. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Gabranth's still alive. But you also have then characters like, I'm forgetting, Nerva, who seems to still be alive. And you have remnants of Garlemald who are going to want to restart the Empire or their own empires. I mean, you saw how Quintus was. Then you have those people of Garlemald who are done being part of Garlemald, and where are they going to live now? Are they just going to integrate into all the different nations? Well, that's going to be its own source of complications, and there's going to be stories and narratives going around that for whoever knows how long. You've got Nalmask somewhere down here. You've got the Ishgari, the central Ilsabardian mountain range. I actually want to see how big Whirl it is. I want to see how big Boja is, because like Boja should be right here, but then Corvos also should be right here. So is Boja just right here? That's incredibly small, because it should be here based on geography. It should be here. However, it also could in theory be here, but the hints we've got don't make it seem like it should be here. But since the Anchorite of Corvos is here, it could be that Boja's here, and then Corvos is here, and then you've got like Nalmask, and then the Republic of Landis is like probably over here or something. You've got the Bounty here. So like all the fertile region of Ilsabard is around the Bounty, and then all the regions that are frozen hellscapes are like, up in this region. We don't know what Landis is like, or Nalmask really. We just know that Nalmask is directly south of Garlemald, so it's somewhere in here. We've got, the Unpromised, we've got the Dvalan Garath, we've got, the Unpromised here, the Dvalan Garath here, we've got the Arash, Blind Frost, so whatever lies beyond the Blind Frost, see what who the heck knows, but we know something's out there. We know that there's basically an Atlantis somewhere in the Bounty, or at least ancient ruins of some kind. I mean, even in Thavnair, the area you go in Thavnair is just here. You don't even go to the northern part of Thavnair, really. I mean, you go to Vanaspati, but that's still, like, the northern side of the island. You don't really go to the... It's possible. I mean, we got Hagelthon, right, which is... and Zelftal up here as an entire dungeon. The scale of Boja Dalmasca is still kind of crazy of how small it looks in the map when you take into mind the population of those areas. Yeah. Well, Dalmasca is interesting, though, because you have Dalmasca, but the Dalmasca has the Eastern Sand and Western Sand. This is also only Dalmasca Superior, and then there's Dalmasca Inferior, which is actually technically still part of the Dalmasca region. So, like, Dalmasca is actually kind of huge. But we didn't go to Dalmasca Inferior or its capital, which I am forgetting how to pronounce. Or forgetting what it is. It starts with a V, but I don't actually remember how to say it. And then you've got Nangsha. Just Hingashi proper. Then you got Mara City down here. South Sea Isles we still have to go to. I would love to go to Cape Meat, because the way it was named is pretty funny. Basically, a Columbus analogy type of someone who was really bad at sailing, sailed from Eorzea, and was like, I found the way to Hingashi! And they arrived here, and it's not even halfway to Hingashi. Yeah, but that's the thing, too, is we never know when we'll get dungeons that are meant to be... whenever we'll get... Regions can be dungeons. Huge regions can be just dungeons. Like this, we're probably never going to Packlethorn. We got it as a dungeon. Same with Zelftal. And those are big places. But do we get to go to Dalmasca proper at all? Even after going to it as Alliance Raid? Because, I mean, for an Alliance Raid, we get to go to, you know, we get to go to Rabanastre, and we get to go to Orbone Monastery, and we get to go to, well, we got to go to Gog, which is over in here, and the Ridderon Cataract, which is somewhere around where Corvos is and would have been where the Garlean ancestors probably lived. I mean, we don't know that they're the Garlean ancestors, but there's a lot of evidence to suggest that they're the Garlean ancestors. Yeah, exciting times, man. Like, to anyone and everyone who's like, oh man, Endwalker, where are they gonna go next? I don't know what else they have left to do. Like even if you're not a lore nut, they've been sowing seeds since A Realm Reborn to be able to do so much. There's so much left to do. Yeah. The interesting thing to me is like if Dalmasca or Baja is here. Does that mean Baja's like here and then Zadnor's like here? Like where geographically where it is going to be really interesting. I would not also be surprised if what happened is that when this map gets changed eventually someday, when this map gets changed and these clouds get revealed, I would not be surprised to see if at the Anchorite at Corvos here and some of this stuff actually gets moved up a little and gets rearranged just a little bit, because that just makes a lot of sense. It also might not happen. It's not. I just wouldn't be surprised if it did. Because you could justify that in world. These maps were made by people who hadn't explored Ilsamard and didn't know a ton about it. Like for instance, Garlemald looks like this, but that wasn't really like. Let me see if I can find the realm. No. World map of realm. Can't find a good one, but yeah, needless to say, there's a good chance that map could be maneuvered around. I at least suspect the map will get a revamp the more it gets unveiled. Yep. Honestly, the biggest thing for me is the resolution. It's just criminal how low resolution this map is. Like, you can't easily see a bunch of the text, and the text is really beautiful and interesting and actually literally says the name of places. And it's really saddening how low resolution it is, because there's a bunch. One of the things I'm really excited for in terms of the graphics updates is hopefully some anti-aliasing changes, and just there's too many things in this game that have PlayStation 2 era that have sub HD graphics in a lot of cases. Like there's some Realm Reborn stuff. There are too many things that have graphic fidelity that's too low. I appreciate and understand why it is, and I appreciate and understand the history of why it is, why it's hard to change, and the insane amount of work required to fix it and to change it. But it's gotten to a point where it's a problem. It's really a shame considering how much work they put into it. Yeah. What I can't seem to figure out is why. Because when whoever made this, they did not make it at this resolution. The original version of this is at a high resolution, guaranteed. So the question in my mind is, why is it compressed like this? And the other thing is that we've had parts of it revealed over time. So why have they at never at any point gone about, you know, releasing it at a higher resolution, at a full resolution? And I'm sure there's a reason. I don't know if it's a good reason. I'm sure there's a reason. Otherwise, you know, why not? Because, yeah. The only thing I can think of, this is not because it's the only thing, but the thing that jumps into my mind is that a high resolution version of this would be too easy for people to steal and then print and then make merch of. But that would be a silly reason. Even if it's just an HD labeled map of just Eorzean. Yeah. Here's my thing. If they did just an HD map of Eorzea, then they kind of have to do an HD map of everywhere else. So like if they're not going to do it, they can't kind of half-ass it. I appreciate that at the very least. I forget how you used to be able to just look at the map of Eorzea at a higher resolution. I have it saved on the computer, but one of the other things I've done is I've tried some upscaling stuff to up-res some of the maps, but the thing is that even with up-resing, they're not great. What we do know about Genghis is Genghis is supposed to be in a region outside of Boja and near Dalmasca-ish that is swampy. And we know that the areas that are the coastline of the bounty are supposed to be swampy-ish. So, I mean, that still means that Genghis could be in here. But it also means that Genghis could be anywhere around the bounty. And therefore, Boja, in theory, could be here. Now, I suspect it's here from a lot of context clues and how it's referenced being neighbor to Dalmasca. But now I'm just repeating myself. I wish Yefame... Like, this is also a sad thing, like, Yefame Saltmore, right? Like, we have an alliance right here, and yet you can barely even read its name. What about Gearbond? Anything interesting in Gearbond? I mean, we already have a dungeon for Scala, but I want to know more about Scala. We talked about the West Shroud earlier. We could have stuff in the West Shroud. My hope is that the Sanctum of the Twelfth shows up in some amount with Mists of the Realm, which I think is likely. A few people have tried to make upscaled maps I've seen, but it's kind of funny how different locations are placed on each map. I've seen Cartnow in like 7 different places. Yeah, Cartnow is just Cartnow is basically just here. Here. Actually, let me go pull up my high resolution map because I actually have a. Sorry, give me a second. Where did I save these to? Oh, I saved them to the Eorzean archives folder. Maps. Yeah, here we go. Okay, I'm gonna reveal this, display capture. Okay, so if you look, you've got the famed Saltmore here. You've got here. You've got Mordona here. You've got Silver Tear Falls here. Cartnow, it seems to be based on the fact that the there's the PvP map that's close to Vilbrand, between Vilbrand and Mordona. Cartnow Flats seem to be here, which makes the most sense. And then you can see the Cartnow Flats here. Sorry, Cartnow Flats. Yeah, so they should be about here. Because you go into Mordona proper, Silver Tier. Yes, like you barely read this, but that says Cartnow Flats. So I mean, the thing is, the names usually are the general vicinity, so it's here basically, which means also that Western Danelin is definitely here, which also makes sense since Scuba is visible from it. But so it's this peninsula is also its own thing though. So I think the Cardinal Flats should be over here. It also, what's the PvP map called? Because it has a bunch of the same relics as Cardinal. Let's turn on PvP maps. Frontline. Seal Rock, that's what I'm thinking of. So Seal Rock, if you look at here, Seal Rock may be part of this archipelago here. But we know at the very least it's very related to Cardinal and the Cardinal installation. And that's why it's part of the Borderland, Seal Rock, the Fields of Glory are all part of Allegan installations of some kind. Or at least Allegan remnants. Some of it is just from Dalamud. But yeah, that's why it's a crime, right? Because like if this was legible, you could just know, hey, there's the Cardinal Flats. Whereas like this is just nightmarish. You can't even read. This is the Strait of Merlthor, major water body, but you can't even read it. Luckily, you can read the Indigo Deep here, Blood Brine Sea. Like if it's this big, it's fine. Air Slaint, like you can't even read Air Slaint. Ugh. Tragedy. But yeah. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. One of the things I wish I had time. I mean, not that I've said anything particularly funny, but I wish I had time to like create clips of some of the streams. But going back through them is just not a good use of time with all the work we've got to do. All the work I've got to do. I see. Nuniri writes a bunch of articles. Isidoril does so much tech and really helpful work in the background. So like, it's not like I don't mean like me alone. I do all the work, but when it comes to YouTube, I do pretty much everything. Keep going to Western Thamlin. Okay, we've got Rat's Nest, Coffer and Coffin. We got, so we still need to do Clutch. Let me check my notes. Hold on, Dispatch, Royal Plantations, done, Sultanry, done, Sogoli, done. Sogoli Gates, we still need to do Sogoli Gates. I'm gonna go to Systems, I'm gonna turn off Systems Ether. So I still need to do Sogoli Gate down here. Blackbrush Eastgate got. Where's Lost Hope? Okay, there's Lost Hope. Let's just do the gate's the last area from the Blackbrush region I need to do, or the Spinal Space region. So let's do that first. Let's clear up this fog. Should only need one shot of this. Kind of like that sunset background, but every other shot's at noon. So let's keep it steady. Okay, let's zoom out. How's that? Oh, I don't love that. Makes it look so small. Let's get a more interesting direction. Look up. Yeah. Let's do that. Yeah, the other thing I just remember about the Gates of Cart now, right, is that it said that when people march from Ul'dah, they march from the steppes of Nald, and they marched north from Ul'dah to northern Thanalin, which means that they basically accessed Cardinal Flats like this, and the Black Shroud. You know, it's funny because Thanalin and Lenosia are actually like the Cardinal Flats are like right here, whereas like the Gridanians have to like actually like go through a bunch of crap to actually get there. But it is really like Mordona really is the heartland of Eorzea if you think about in terms of like geopolitical powers, right? Like Garabania obviously is off here, but like between the four, it is like smack dab. And Garabania sits right next to the Gimlet Dark. Okay. Let's get back to the Jeepos. No, I want the NPCs. Come back to me, my NPC friends. How's that? That's pretty good. I like that a lot better. It makes the gate seem actually kind of imposing. Oh, no. How's that? How do I like that better than Fair Skies? Clear Skies. I like that Clear Skies better. Okay. There we go. Okay. And start the recording. Set the alarm. Anyone got any hot takes they want to talk about? To turn on the NPCs. That's recorded. Bring chat back up. Well, I have hot takes for sure. Talk about them. I'm not so sure. Well, I mean, like, if you want to talk about them because you want to AXize demons, or you feel strongly about them but actually want someone who will genuinely listen to you, like, I might disagree or I might, like, discuss the nuance of with you, but I will genuinely listen to you if you have a thing of interest you want to talk about. I mean, unless it's, like, heinous. I don't mean heinous as in, like, oh, that's so stupid. I mean, like, cruel, mean, or, you know, like, that sort of stuff. But, no, like, feel free. This is, you know, I know it's that's sort of engagement I'm interested in, right? It is, you know, talking to people, being heard and listening, but from a place of like constructively actually trying to get somewhere with it, right? Like not just prove I'm right, but like learn something new or proffer a new perspective to others. Wait, I did turn on the NPCs. Why are they not here? Why do they count under? Oh, controlled characters. That's why. That dumbass. Okay. Let's turn, and then I'll set the alarm. Okay. Oh no, not mean or anything. I'm not that kind of person. Yeah, I wasn't worried about that. I more just meant to make it clear that you don't need to worry about it. Like, one of our members who may or may not be watching and will go unnamed may or may not have been joking to me about how much they thought Final Fantasy X was trash. Because after also I had professed my love for it, but also they were kidding. But it was a funny conversation. They they acknowledged and laughed when I explained to them. They talked about how they loved Final Fantasy X too, and I said, the thing about 10-2 is you think about 10-2 as really good fan fiction, it works really well. In any other light, not so much. But you know, like Final Fantasy X is my favorite single-player Final Fantasy for a lot of reasons, but I do not hate 10-2 though. Despite 10-2, I actually really love 10-2, but it is not. It's a very different game. Person who may or may not be watching my heart. Final Fantasy 13 may be a bad game, but man, the setting is rad. Setting is rad. Some of the underlying characters and their motivations are actually really interesting. Has probably, I think, the best main battle theme for any single-player Final Fantasy game. Like, I mean, that's hard because there's a lot of really great ones, but Blinded by Light is amazing. I love that it uses thematics themes for its music. I think 13 is a deeply flawed game. I think 13 has pacing issues. I think 13 suffers from pacing issues more than anything else in some ways. Like, people could be like, oh, Final Hallway, or all these jokes about 13 and how linear it is, but 10 is also linear, and people don't accuse it of the same thing. And that's because 10's pacing is much better. And because you get the airship around the same time you go to Grand Pulse, if not later in the story. And yet, the fact that 13 only opens up right at the end the way it does just doesn't work. And also the fact that you don't have your whole crew together until as late as you do in the game just doesn't... It struggles in a bunch of different ways. But I think 13 is deeply flawed, but there's a lot to love about it. I think 13.2 solves a bunch of the problem that 13 does, and I think Lightning Returns is a travesty and a train wreck, and one of the few games that I've ever actually been kind of genuinely angry to play because of how much it did all of its characters and its setting and everything dirty. I love things about 10.2, but it definitely doesn't hold the same place in my heart as 10 does. Yep, that's how I feel about it. There's a lot I love about 10.2, and as someone who doesn't necessarily love fan fiction in general, I don't mean it as a con to say it's really good fan fiction. I just think if you think about it with that lens, it does a lot. I think it really allows you to enjoy it a hell of a lot more. Because I think that's its vibe. Whether or not it meant to be that vibe, I can't say, but it's definitely the vibe it has. And in that regard, it's enjoyable. I also do like its ATB system. I know some people don't, but I like the Dress Sphere system and the ATB system. As much as it can be broken to all hell. Pacing issues galore, yeah. I had no idea why the heck they decided to make the dungeon so long, like painfully so. Yeah, 13, I genuinely think 13's primary problem, far and away, is its pacing issue. I think, like, most of the other problems it's criticized for, while warranted, could be overlooked if its pacing was good. How do I want to do shots of this? This is all the tree line. Okay. What do I have for notes on Lost Hope? Like, do I write about Lost Hope? If I write about Lost Hope mainly about its mining in caverns, that's going to be different than the shots I want if I... Lost Hope. Yeah, okay, so I mainly wrote about the cave system. So let's focus on that as a shot, and then get a B-roll shot of the camp itself. Excuse me. This is a cool place, but just getting this as a shot doesn't really work. You know what? If I pull out make it a wide angle, I think it'll work. Yeah. Okay. Let's zoom in a little bit. Cave system. Ooh, why don't I do just one from this angle? Yeah, that's what I'll do. Because then I can transition from the outside to an inside shot, and then if I want one more shot, I can transition into the botanical garden area. 15 has a different slate of issues, but 15 I think is also a deeply flawed game with a lot of things to love about it, and its flaws really hamper what is good about it. It's also just kind of a mess in terms of being a game. I'm really excited for 16 because 16's battle style and everything about it is up my alley. As much as like high fantasy isn't necessarily always my style, steampunk fantasy and kind of the team doing it I'm in for. And the other thing is it's being produced by Yoshida means that all the pacing and normal problems I've had, all the issues I've had with Final Fantasy games, 15, 13, 12 to an extent, for the past decade or more, will likely not be present in 16. So currently playing through 12, and the entire time I'm basically just been thinking about how much 12 will get if we eventually explore the region in 14, because just geography alone, so yeah, 12's world building is some of the best Final Fantasy has ever done, and its geography is amazing. If you also think about 12 almost like an offline MMO, the amount of stuff it has going on is tremendous. I mean, like, you can say that about 15 too, but when 12 came out, it was pretty impressive for the time. I love a lot of things about 12. I think it also has pacing issues. I think if you think about it as a 5-act structure, and its final two acts are not as strong as its first 3. But if you think about it as a 5-act Shakespearean structure, it makes a lot more sense than if you try to think about it as a 3-act structure. I'll say that. And I did not realize that until I came back to play it as an adult. But 12's world building is amazing. And honestly made me actually really disappointed with Tactics, because I played Tactics War of the Lions for the first time recently. And I had always heard and always understood that Tactics and 12 were the same universe, and including War of the Lions, not just Advance. But they aren't. They just aren't. Like, I realize there are some, like, loose connections, but War of the Lions, Tactics, and World as a World, and 12 just are fundamentally not at all connected, and so I was really disappointed. Also, War of the Lions was really hyped up as a really, really good story, and it's fine. Like, it was, for the period of time it came out, I understand why people liked its depths, but, like, all its problems are on display in Boja, and the way in which it, like, lore dumps in a bad way, and also, like, puts major information in, like, notes that you need to go read in order to understand the full context of the story in a bad way. And it's just not... It's fine. And I'm sure it was much better fare in contrast to the other things coming out in the late 90s. But, yeah. I'm also, like, tactic-style gameplay, especially tactic-style from, over 2 decades ago, is just not my preferred gameplay combat. So I didn't even have that to look forward to. I do think games like Triangle Strategy and Octopath and all that jazz are phenomenal and look gorgeous. Yeah, that works. Seconds to go. Most of these shots I'm not going to need a full minute for. I'll probably only be using 4 to 15 seconds of them, but this way I'll have the B-roll for it forever, and that way if I do need a longer shot for a lore talk or something, I won't have to film it again. Also, 12 has Balthier, and Balthier is... Oh, I love Balthier. I also love that Balthier and Fran is literally just Han Solo and Chewbacca. Like, literally just is. That's the other thing 12 struggles with. It doesn't know who it wants its main character to be, because it's kind of Vaughn, it's kind of Bosch, it's kind of Balthier, it's kind of Ash. Like, it, yeah. Okay, got Lost Hope. Quiver on Mence. I need that, and then I need the Unholy Air. This is also a Cocoon area, right? No. Quiver on Group. Right. Let's block it. Yeah. Yes. With the burning wall in the background. Or that should be easier, right? Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, that's a good shot. Praise be the power of shortcuts. What are my notes on the clutch and the unholy mans? Yeah. Unholy air. Sorry, not quiver on mans. Yeah. See the part that used to be part of Hydaelyn. Wait, ooh, hello. Can't get in. Apparently this was a part of the geography. There was a giant boulder and it fused with part of Hydaelyn that fell. I'm not quite sure why. Okay. I don't want the uniform above. I don't want it to look small. It should look big. So, yeah, that's what we're gonna do. I keep getting distracted by Gold Saucer, and therefore I'm too late to comment on the combos. All good. Yeah, no. I mean, if there's any that you missed, feel free to comment on them now. I mean, one, we're low key, and two, it's not like there's like a huge, flood of people commenting. So if you want to like go back a step to something I was talking about earlier, feel free. We were mostly just talking about hot takes and feelings about different Final Fantasies or different games. That does not work because of the shrubbery. And that makes it look too small. Although it's not, that's actually pretty okay. Let's see how's it look with cinematic depth of field. It's too much. Okay, I don't like that. Let's see. Actually, one's way too shallow. Ah. You know what I'm gonna do that will probably help. So I'm gonna cheat a little bit. Where did I also may have set my settings so that I'm replying to your guys' comments probably like 15 or 30 seconds later than I'm reading them. I think I forgot to set my streaming settings so it was low latency. There we go. There we go. Let's try that. Do you have any race you find the most interesting lore-wise? Ooh, that's a really great question. So I'm actually in the middle of recording the audio for the Rogadin. Well, I'm about to do that probably after stream, the Rogadin race video, because I need to finish all my other races. If we're talking about playable races, that's also very different than talking about the other tribes, because those are their own discussion. So let me think about it. So Miqo'te are interesting partly because of the way in which they migrated across the Bloodbrine Sea during the Fourth Astral Era, and the fact that there's the distinction between Seeker of the Sun and Keeper of the Moon, and the whole naming structure and all of that. Here in one sense are not interesting at all, and in another sense are kind of really interesting because of their migratory patterns and how they've kind of ended up everywhere. So that's Miqo'te in here. Rogadin, I love Rogadin. I love the Arslanti. I wouldn't say that they have the most interesting lore, but I really love Rogadin culture, and I'm really, really hoping we go to Arslanti, especially now since we've been to Sharlayan. I really love the sort of stuff around them coming to Eorzean, the ones that ended up in the Far Reach and the ones that ended up in Vilbrand. I kind of have to just walk through each one to think about who. So then we've still got Eorzean. Eorzean are kind of like here in that in one sense they're really interesting because of places like Ishgard and also their existence on Eorzea and places like Gelmora. But I don't find Eorzean Eorzean are probably lowest tier. You've then got your Lullafels. I think Lullafels are fascinating, especially the history of the Dunesfolk, because of how inextricably linked that is to Thanalin and Maki and the 6th Umbral Calamity and all that jazz. You have your Vieras, who are really interesting, but they're also pretty much just Viera from Final Fantasy XII. Which is not that they're not interesting. I think there's a lot of there that is really interesting. On one hand, it doesn't interest me the most. And then you have your Hrothgar, who really we don't have a ton of lore for other than Boja. Like really, that it just boils down to that. And so in a sense, they aren't really that interesting because of that. And then you have the Auri, who are really interesting, especially with the Dawn Father and Dusk Mother, and the ways in which those are really closely tied to the Dawnworm and the Duskworm, otherwise known as Bahamut and Tiamat, that is their titles, the Dawn and Duskworm, and the way in which those sired and they ruled over the peoples on Mericidia, and their Auri connection and links between dragons, and the ways in which they aren't linked between dragons, and the ways in which the Dawn Mother and the Dawn Father and Dusk Mother are almost certainly stories that originated from Tiamat and Bahamut. I have a theory video on that coming out at some point. So I guess for me then it's probably between the Auri, the Rogadin, and the Lullafel. Am I missing anyone? 5 races: Miqo'te, Hyur, Lullafel, Eorzean, Rogadin. Yeah. Then Auri, Aura, Viera, and Hrothgar. So yeah, so top 3 are Rogadin, Lullafel, and Auri in terms of interesting. If you include, the tribal quests. Previously, the Beast Tribes. Really happy with the name change too. I'm super happy with it. Especially, I have a video on this, which I've put out like a year ago, which I highly recommend checking out on this, about the lie of the notion of Beast Tribe. But I'm really excited. What I'm triply excited about is they aren't doing the thing where they're erasing history and they're going back and retroactively making things be called Beast Tribes. They're not changed to tribes until you beat 6.0, and it's tied to the narrative of the game, because that's so much more powerful and so much a much better lesson and a much better experience of growing and changing, rather than just overriding any past mistakes or failures. I think that that's absolutely the right move, and I think because of how much the notion of Beast Tribes and racism and struggles between each other is a part of A Realm Reborn and 14 as you go on, changing it where they are, I think really makes a lot of sense. And then the other thing too is you have things like, there's been so many things that have questioned the notion of how Beast Tribes as a term doesn't make sense. And, you know, the final feather in that cap, right, is dwarves, right? Because if you know what's under a dwarf's helmet, you can understand, yes, the notion of a Beast Tribe is utter bullshit. But also, beyond that, if you understand the historical context, or also, hey, why is an Amalja a Beast Tribe, but a dragon isn't? Like, and I don't mean just gameplay-wise. I mean, in lore, they're not called Beast Tribes. So why, like, where are these delineations? What is it because they're beastly? Well, why aren't Pagel then considered a Beast Tribe? The whole thing utterly breaks down, and I love the way they're dealing with it. Genesis, I absolutely loved the choice to change it like that. Yeah, this is the perfect way to handle it, as far as I'm concerned. My camera is still stuck up in the sky. Let us fix that. There we go. Hey, good to see you. Beep boop to you too. But yeah, so just to reiterate, top 3 favorite in terms of lore for races that are non-tribes are Roganin, Lullafell, and Auri. When it comes to tribes, I can think of them all, but I need to pull them up just because I want to like run down the list. So you've got your Realm Reborn, you've got your Amalja, your Sylphs, your Kobolds, your Sazhagan, your Ixal. The Sylphs are not that interesting to me as much as Ramu is interesting to me because of his ties to Ralgur and the implications that he's more aware of his nature and the nature of the 12 than he lets on. Kobolds, I like Ogamoro, and I like the region, and I like the historical. I like the conflict between the Kobolds and Sahagans and the Luminsons. Like, I like that narrative a lot. I don't think the lore for the Kobolds was that interesting. The Sahagan interests me because I'm really interested in the Indigo Deep, but their lore itself is not that interesting to me. I love the Ixali. I love their history. I love the fact that they craft. I love that they are the progenitors of air travel in Eorzea. They're the ones who figured out first that ceruleum they discovered ceruleum and filling balloons full of it. You then have so of the A Realm Reborn, and then the Amalja. I like the Amalja partially because I like Phandelin and I like Packlethon, and they're really interesting. But none of these are like my top tier, and part of that is because their stories are good, but none of their stories are great. Really, like the Ixali one, it approaches it, but none of their stories are like excellent as some of the later ones are. In terms of like straight lore, they're all good. Ixali wins out for A Realm Reborn. For Heaven's Word, you've got your Vanu, your Vath, and your Mughals. Now, Mughals wins my heart a little bit because I love that we get to do a story where we get to see something recreated and the fixing of ties between Dragon's Man and Mughal, and also because of the like historical legacy of Mughals. But you know, the idea of Vath trying to find identity and the Vanu trying to defend themselves. Like, I'm talking about the stories, but that's also because like the lore for the Vath is interesting because of the fact that they were part of a hive mind. Sorry, James, which part did you not consider true? I'd be interested to hear. But with the Vath, the fact that they were originally part of a hive mind and then have become their own, that's interesting. The Vanu have their dance culture, which is interesting, and also the fact that the spirits of the past have direct relationships with their present. And also, again, the dancing scene at the end is hysterically both funny and moving. You got your Mughals. So probably of these 3, Mughals is probably my favorite, but that's like, in a sense, that's not even because of Mughals and their lore. which again is interesting because the Mughals we know are one of the few races that were definitely around for the first astral era in a meaningful way, and therefore one of the few people who can give us any insight to that time. But also the Mughal story being a crafting one, and also a combination of us working together to build the bridges between the present and the past when dragons and man work together, and those three is just a very moving thing for me. How the game is going to incorporate the name change for the tribal quest feature. Yeah. Okay, cool. Stormblood, you get Kojin, the Ananta, and Namazu. Now, I love the Kojin for a lot of different reasons. The Ananta I really like because they're crafters. And again, I'm kind of rating their stories a little bit more than their lore. But, like, I think the most interesting lore, honestly, across the board between them is their languages. Like, a lot of the different groups' languages are really interesting. I love the Namazu. There's also a lot to say about the lore of the Namazu in how their celebration actively seems to affect the existence of their races and what would have happened if we hadn't worked with them. So, like, I love the Namazu because they're funny. I love the Namazu as a whole, and I love that story. But their culture around the bells, their culture around trade, their culture around both being a butt end of the joke and also a meaningful peoples is kind of interesting to me. But probably my favorite is Kojin, because the Kojin of the red and the Kojin of the blue are really interesting, and also the amount of ties they have to Japanese culture, and especially the Edo, well, more really the Sengoku period. The Sengoku and Edo period is really, I love the ties to Shinto with them, as well as I love so much that the reason that the Kojin of the green, so there's a Kojin of the red, who are red, and there's the Kojin of the blue, who are green. The reason for this, I believe, is because I don't know at which point this switched over, but it used to be that the word for green and blue was kind of the same in Japanese, because it was kind of like sea color, like the color of the sea, and so basically the fact that they're called the Kojin of the blue and they're green is because in that context they are the Kojin of the sea and they are sea colored. But when it gets localized to English, it doesn't really work. But it also, because it doesn't work, it gets instead to be an interesting touchstone and an interesting bit of its own culture. I also just find that story really moving, and I love Zoroban. Shadowbringers, we get the Pixies, the Kitari, and then the Dwarves. My favorite in that is the Dwarves by far, again, because I love crafters in that story, but also because their society is really interesting, especially in juxtaposition of Lalafels, and the ways in which the Dwarves are not like the Lalafels of Eorzea in a lot of ways. The Kitari is really interesting because it tells us a lot about. It's one of the few things that tells us a lot about the pre-flooded world, and also the fact that Namazu definitely existed on the first, before the Flood of Light, and seemed to have gone extinct. Though they may have just been lost. The same with the Kitari were. Then the Pixies. Pixies are really interesting because the ways in which you can look at them is kind of analogous to the Sylph, but they really aren't. And the way in which they are the reincarnation of dead children in a very, Irish, Celtic sort of way. But the lore around them is fascinating because of the fact that they are embodied souls, and that other than the reincarnation that we see across the board in Final Fantasy XIV, the incarnation of a soul like that, we don't see that on the source in a way that isn't really like an Ashkin, and therefore is kind of unique to the first. I've been doing the Kojin lately. That's awesome. Language nuances are the best. Yeah, I will say. And one thing that's really important to understand is that things that you could construe as localization failures or mistakes are sometimes actually very intentional in 14. And like part of that is there's a name for something somewhere in Hingashi or something that's basically, if you translate it, it basically translates to like spring or river. But the reason for that is because that happens in history all the time, and so it's not like an oversight. The localizers know. They speak fluent. Koji knows when he makes choices like that. He's talked about this. Sometimes things do not contextually translate, and so sometimes you just have to make a localization choice of what is the spirit of this thing trying to get across, which is far more important than what is this thing literally trying to get across. For any anime fans out there, this is one of the things I go to for trying to explain localization versus literalization. there's an anime called Bokudake ga Inamachi, which is in English called Erased. Now, Bokudake ga Inamachi, if you literally translate it, would be something to the effect of the town where I do not exist, or the town where I alone don't exist. You know, now you could translate it as that, but if your anime was titled "The Town Where I Alone Do Not Exist," that doesn't. It's not a good name. Like, I kind of like it. It's kind of poetic. The Town Where I Don't Exist is actually kind of a good name, but Erased is the fundamental thing that name is trying to get across to its viewer. The idea of being erased from the narrative, of not being a part of the world anymore. Which, if you watch it, you'd understand why that's sort of the thematic statement. But that's sort of the difference between you can literally translate something or you can localize something. Which localization is not bad. It's about doing it well is about contextualizing a thing from another language into this language, and making it so the spirit of the thing is saved rather than the literalization of the thing is saved. Now, there's a lot of people who disagree both about that being the correct way or about where the line is between those on when is it good localization versus when should it be literalized. Sometimes you could just argue, okay, no, something should have to be literalized and you just need to know historical context in order to get it. You know, there's a bunch of different ways to approach it, but I think 14 is a fascinating case of it. You know, another good example is that the minion text for all of the English is completely different than the Japanese text for all the minions. The minions in the Japanese text, a lot of them have what are more, a little bit more lore-y tidbits. Not always, just sometimes a little bit of flavor. Whereas the English is almost always puns. But that's you know, that's a Genesis. That was a really great example. Okay, good. I'm glad that was glad that it was easily understood. Didn't want to overcomplicate it, but the Kojin story is just, I love the Kojin story a lot. I think all the tribes are worth your time, and I think it's sad that I think a lot of people do not do the Beast tribes, and I appreciate that the tribe quest, and I think one of the things that's really nice that they're doing with them is their sense. I mean, really Stormblood, but especially with Shadowbringers, they made the rewards for them so good that it was worthwhile to do them, in terms of like XP gain and yada yada. But they definitely get better with time. I don't want to say it's linear. Like, I don't think it's quite linear, but I do think on the whole, Heavensward's way better than Realm Reborn. Stormblood's mostly better than Heavensward. Shadowbringers is better than Stormblood in terms of their storytelling, and especially with the scope and scale of the things that change in the world when you do the stories. Because when it comes to the changes in something like a Realm Reborn, the only thing that changes really is the Ixali dirigible. When it comes to Heavensward, you get the Vath kind of have their repository of stuff built up. You have the Vanu Vanu totem, and then you have the Mughals rebuilding the plaza for the dragons. And then with Stormblood, you get the tower that's reclaimed, which is really cool. You get the Kojin with their treasure hoard, which is really, really cool. And then the Namazu. If you haven't done the Namazu quest, I am going to show you what happens when you finish the Namazu quest. So you're basically the whole time you're building a party. So you're just trying to get more and more Namazu to show up. So you're building this cool, cute little party. You get little, taiko drum. It's like a taiko, I think. Palanquin, like foods, horses, and like mini games. But also, you get this. Which I won't spoil why you get it, but it is a giant paper lantern of a Namazu cooking other Namazus to feast upon. And I don't know what else to say about that. Since the Namazu existed on the first, does that mean that the first specific stuff, at least pre-flood races like the Numo, could exist on the source? Excellent question. We don't know. Partially because we don't know if the Numo or things like the Pixies exist on the source as a byproduct of things that are specific to the source, or if they're just phenomena that just happen to exist there but not here. Did the Numo, for instance, maybe evolve at a much earlier period during the Sundering? It's possible. Do the Numo potentially exist here, but they are only found in the New World, and they would have been founded on the New World analog on the first, but migrated to Ilmeg area before the flood on the first. However, here they never migrated. We can't say for sure until we go to the New World in Mericidia. And even then, we don't know that, for instance, they might not have died out during the first Astral Era when the first Umbral Calamity happened, or something like that. So is it possible? Yes. Do we know? No. Could we know? Possibly. Will we? Who can say? Oh my god, I just started the Namaza 2. That's hilarious. Their quest line to even unlock them were so long, but very interesting. Yeah. If there's one thing I can emphasize when it comes to 14, and I struggled with this when I first started playing, it is, and this is what Endwalker is all about, it is about the journey, not the destination. Just let yourself enjoy it. Don't feel the need to rush it. Do not feel the need to have to complete it. Do not feel the need to extremely need to catch up. The game, you will catch up with ease just playing semi-regularly. Take your time. Enjoy the journey. It is the first game that has genuinely... It is one of the few things in my life that has managed to, like, break a habit of, like, other, the training that other MMOs and other games give you, which is, I gotta catch up, I gotta finish everything, I gotta do. Take your time. It really is gonna be okay, and you will be able to catch up with everyone, and you will be able to do everything you want. Side note, absolutely adore the music here. Yes. Yes. This is a really deep cut. For some reason, whenever I hear it, I always think of Putt Putt Goes to the Zoo, and the Savannah music from that. I recently went back and listened to that music. It's not that similar, but for whatever reason, it unlocks a memory from deep in my mind from 20 years ago. I know the new Mo are decently prevalent in 12 tactics, so they could potentially be in areas of Western Oathard and haven't touched on yet, though the New World is also a good idea. Yeah, so could they be in somewhere like the Unpromised? Could they be somewhere like the Ara? Yes. Could they be somewhere like the Von Grath? Yes. Could they be somewhere in Nangxia or in Damask Inferior? Yes. But we know quite a bit about those places, and we've never heard of them, which is weird, that there's no even mention of them in anything, or that, like, when you see them for the first time in Shadowbringers, no one is like, oh yeah, like we have on the source. That said, we didn't see Hrothgar's really until Shadowbringers, right? We didn't see Viera, I mean, you did see Viera in Stormblood because of Thrawn. So it's not impossible. I would think it unlikely, but I don't say unlikely as in, like, oh, it's like a 1% chance. I just say it unlikely in that, like, that would be weird with all the lore we know, but not impossible. Or maybe they're somewhere hidden beyond the Blind Frost. They could be so many locations. There's so much of the world. Like, no one's been to Mericidia. Very few people have meaningfully been to Mericidia for the better part of 5,000 years, other than those people who are native. Like, there's some trade with Thavnair, but that's about it. So like, do I think it's likely with the New World? I mean, we only know about 2 groups in the New World, and they're those that are the closest to Vilbrand, and those are the Mamulja and the human tribes, the Hero tribes there. So, like, there's so much of the New World we just don't know about. That's why I suggest the New World, because there's just, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw them. I'm trying to think of another good example. I think, like, another good, interesting thing to look at is the Pixies, right? Like, the fact that we don't have the Pixies. And is that a byproduct of the nature of the source? Or a byproduct of the nature of the first? Or a byproduct of Pixies can form in our world, but don't? I couldn't tell you, because I don't know. But it's definitely an interesting thing. Like, the fundamental metaphysics of how a Pixie exists on the first, there is nothing that should, in theory, stop it from existing on the source. But you can say the same thing for, like, why don't Amuro exist on the source? And part of it is we know just divergent evolution happens, and so it's just possible that, like, Amuro were a divergent evolution of something on the first, thousands of, during the first astral, would have been the first astral era for the first. And they just never happened here. But yeah, so to the earlier point, it's very likely that the Dusk Mother is actually historically the idea came from Tiamat. Now, it could have happened that there were a group of Auri that were on Mericidia, and the groups of Mericidia looked to Tiamat and Bahamut during the Third Astral Era and late Second Astral Era as their, like, leaders, and they're like what Vitra is on Thavnair. And so what's possible is a group of Auri could have then come from Mericidia, and the legends and history of Bahamut and Tiamat could have come with them. Or, because we know that the steppe is usually referred to as the ancestral home of the Zayla and Zayla and the Rain. I mean, mainly the Zayla, the Rain, but the Rain come from the Zaylas. But is that there could have been a time before the second and third astral era when Tiamat and Bahamut came to Mericidia, that before that, during the first astral era or early second astral era, they could have existed in the steppe and could have ruled over the Auri here and then eventually left. That's important to know. That doesn't mean that the Auri are descended from dragons. Like, there's a bunch of stuff going on there. However, there's definitely hints between associations with them and dragons throughout history. But in the same way that Hir and Mother Ultima, other groups have associations with them. But we also know that, all the other groups that we know of exist on the source, or the first. So we know that whenever the Sundering happened, those groups likely existed, because it's unlikely that Hir were both a divergent evolution, but then also ended up being the same across the source and the first. And as far as the void, we would know that they would be the same as the source, first, and void, which would be weird. But yeah. Actually, let me look at something I want to look at real quick in EE2. I should do a thing on the leave cards. What are they called? Leaf plates. Where is it? Yeah, there's also a lot of hints throughout the Encyclopedia Eorzea that the Dawn Mother and Dusk Father are. Dawn Father and Dusk Mother are tied to Tiamat and Bahamut, both in E1 and E2. No, I don't want to read about 10 Culto. Can't read Ross, yeah, Ross, Von Groth, Knowing Sea. Knowing Sea, that's what I was forgetting. We haven't been to the Knowing Sea, although that's really part of, the Rakir Peninsula, so like you've got Rakir Peninsula here, you've got the Aras here, you've got, the Von Groth here, you've got the Knowing Sea, because it's supposed to be the edge of the known world, promised, like. I also love, I can't believe I never noticed this for so long, but just like you've got the 4 cardinal directions and you've also got the 4 auspices tied to them. The dragon of the east, the tiger of the west, the Gembu, the turtle of the tortoise of the north, and the phoenix of the south. There's all sorts of little touches all over this game. And also, what is the capital of Dalmasca Inferior? I keep forgetting its name. It's not like Valinor. No, that's Estinian's last name. What is it? No. Okay, Dalmasca. Scotty Range. Yeah. Oh, come on. Scotty Range. No, I don't want to. Ningxia. Eastern shoreline of Ningxia. Yeah. Why do you tell me about Dalmasca as a whole and Dalmasca Superior, but you don't tell me jack shit about Dalmasca Inferior? Okay, let's look it up. I'm also, like, not that they're bad, but also the wikis for 14 are not great. Sometimes they have, like, speculative information stated as fact, and other times they're just very limited. Typically don't use them as resources, partly because I just can't always trust them. Dalmasca's prosperous. And also because most of the information that they're going to pull from is the same information I'm going to pull from anyways as a primary source. Dalmasca Superior and Dalmasca Inferior. Valnane. That's what it is. Valnane. Right as I get it. Right as I get it, disconnect. Yeah, no, not Rabanaster. Rabanaster is part of Dalmasca Superior. So Rabanaster is... So Valnane is right here. And the Golmore Jungle and the Orbone Monastery and all that is here. Scotty Mountain Range here. And this is Dalmasca Superior over here. And you've got your Western Sand and Eastern Sand and all that jazz. Yeah, disconnect. You were correct. It is Valnane. Then you got your burn. Let's get back to Hydaelyn. Okay, I'm probably definitely also going to go write the Gold Saucer video after this. I have so many videos that are like 50% complete, but like, I mean, they're honestly, the scripts are further ahead than 50% complete, but I'm always worried I'm going to miss key pieces of lore or that like I'm omitting too much. So I have to do a lot of review for a lot of stuff. And then that bites into time for footage gathering and editing. Bonfire, yes, one of my favorite places in 14 because of Mudamix bubbly pots. I love the goblins. And also, just for the people here on this stream, I'm planning to every year have an April Fool's video. And if you want to know what my April Fool's video is, your hint is Mudamix bubbly pots. And I will give you nothing else. I also have a video planned for next year already that I've been thinking about for a while. And the inspiration for it comes from a quote Koji gave when, right as A Realm Reborn was coming out, about something he hoped someone would one day do, that no one to my knowledge ever has. And I am going to do it, and I'm going to do it with quite a bit of production. That is all I will say. Okay, so we've got the bonfire. Okay, so I want a master shot from far away, but I also want a shot of his carriage. What is it called? The Cauldron. That's what it's called. I also love that he has a Hanan period? Claydol eyes. What are they called? Haon period? Is that it? Ningyo. I think that's what I'm thinking. No. Ningyo is the mermaid. No. What I'm thinking of is Japanese. Because that'd be like more like Nendo. Dogu. That's what I'm thinking about. Dogu dolls. So if you ever want to know what I'm talking about, type in DOGUU into Google. And you'll see, once you've seen this style, and it comes from a very specific period of Japanese history, you'll realize how often it shows up in Japanese video games. Here, I can go ahead. Yeah, if you see, you know the Gyoids from Animal Crossing? They have their roots in that. This sort of design shows up all the time. It shows up in 14 a whole bunch. It shows up in Scala. It shows up all sorts of places. But that is the inspiration for why those eyes are like that. Yes, I love April Fool's videos. I'm looking forward to it. Awesome. I'm going to be releasing this April Fool's video on a specific topic. That topic will also be getting a serious version of the video afterwards. So it will not. So let's get a shot of Mudamix and actually, I'm going to need a shot of Mudamix anyways for different reasons. Oh, I need the NPCs. Let's change the weather. My brain stopped working. Quick, someone send help. God, I can't wait till those new lighting changes are gonna be wild, man. Is that good? I kind of like Ludimix as big as he is, but I don't want to call him big. Yeah, that works. What about if I turn on cinematic depth of field? Yeah, that helps a lot. Okay, we're gonna do that. Okay, and setting alarm. Oh. Did my cactar run out of battery? I'm gonna have to replace everything's batteries later. Nope, still got a minute to go. Or 15 seconds to go. Let's see. Reward is salt. Oh, it says reward is salt. Oh, wait. My brain's not working. I know you mentioned in a previous stream you made some things in your background. Did you also make your cacti? The cactars were actually given with friends. So if I had a laser cutter, I would make an army with them. Because I know how to make them very easily, but I just don't have a laser cutter access. I don't have laser cutter. The things that I made are saw cleaver and blood cleaver. A lot of my props are in storage, but saw cleaver from Bloodborne that I made. It also functions. It's also, I think, about 10% too big, but it's badass. Look at these dishes. Not literal blood. Some helmets up top that are different helmets I've made. I've got lightsaber from Galaxy's Edge in Disney World. I have a fossil from Animal Crossing made by my friend during her wedding. I have the book from Myst, which I think it's dead, but it actually functions. Yeah, it's dead. This Kylo Ren helmet that's movie accurate that I made. A bunch of different props and stuff. Oh, Cubone mask for my dog. Star-Lord's blasters and helmet, and just a bunch of different stuff that I just a bunch of different stuff that I either made, gifted, or and I have a lot more that's over there somewhere. Did I? Is that recording? No. Okay. Now let's get a master shot. But yeah, I'm hoping to make a lot more of the triple triad cards at some point, and then bringing those to FanFest. And so if anyone wants to play me in triple triad at FanFest, they can. I'm also working on a Crystal Exarch cosplay for conventions because I really love that staff and I really love that character. Yeah, no problem. Well, thanks for giving me a reason to show off some of the stuff I've actually made. Usually it just sits down here. I do like it as decor, though. We want NPCs. And then we don't want it to be raining. That would be helpful, because when you're talking about a desert, maybe rain is not the most appropriate imagery. Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, I like that. I don't like how low res looks like from up here. Oh, this 80 okay. Well, that's fine. This is, let's try. Actually, let me see, does this work any better? Yeah. Yeah, that'll work. I guess, I remember you mentioning that. I look forward to your cosplay there. Sorry. Thanks. I really miss cosplaying. I haven't in years. I need to break down and cosplay some of the characters from 14 that I want to do for a while. Honestly, I haven't cosplayed in years either. I haven't been to cons in years for a bunch of different reasons. One of which is that I didn't have groups to go with that were enjoyable, and I had a bunch of really bad experiences for a bunch of different unrelated reasons. And just, so they were just really stressful and rather than fun and expensive. And cosplaying got really stressful too, for also a bunch of different reasons. This is the first time I've actually been really excited to do it in a while, and it's partly because there's like one I want to do, and also like a really specific purpose to why I want to do it, rather than just a broad swath of characters that I want to do for a bunch of different reasons, and I want to make all their cosplays, and I have the skills to make their cosplays, but I don't because I'm suffering from depression, and I'm having a hard time getting anything done. I'm also trying to do all the work I'm supposed to do, and yada 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 yada. So, all to say, I empathize, and maybe we can get to, maybe when as the community gets bigger for Eorzean Archives, we can try to do group cosplays for the fan fests. I know me, Isidoril, and Naniri are 100% definitely going to the fan fest. The question is just really which one, because we can try to meet Naniri over the Japanese one, or they can come here and try to meet us for the American one. The problem is the Japanese one is a lottery system, so that's less likely to happen. But I also have friends over there to stay with, so there's a lot of ways to make it happen. Stop saying such relatable things. Yeah. If you know, you know. If you suffer from it, you suffer from it, and you know the pain. It is not a fun time, and it is sad. And it can be a great tool in terms of allowing you to understand other people's suffering, but it does not change things. It is rough. So weird. Okay, so we've got the mines, and then we've got the... I don't want to do that. Okay, I guess I'll take a master shot of the mines, and then a shot of the cube. That's what I'll do. So this is gonna... I want to see the tunnel, but there's not a really good way to see it. Well, what if I put myself here, and then I make it wide angle? How's that? Okay, I can work with this. And then we zoom in. Yeah. Let's just groups, the expense, and the reason why I'm not cosplaying certain things. Oof. Yep. It's no fun. But that's why I let myself just not do it anymore, and until I felt like there was a reason to, and I really have wanted the Crystal Exarch staves, and I've just been meaning to make them and haven't, because cosplaying itself was stressing me out for, again, a lot of different reasons, including making anything. But I've just finished modeling or tweaking the models for them, and I'm going to start 3D printing them soon. I need to make a cast of the crystal from his 5.3 onwards outfit, but I don't need that staff nearly as much as I need the Crystal Exarch staff, so which is much, in a lot of ways, much easier to make. The mines. Sorry, had to be said. My cousin Dwalin? Oh no, forgetting my Lord of the Rings lore. Will give us a royal welcome. And set timer. Yeah, my other hope is to bring the Triple Triad cards and make prizes for people to have, maybe stickers or something for the Eorzean archives, so that if people beat me, they can win a prize. Honestly, that's one of the reasons that I'm trying to, like, I should be promoting Patreon more, but I'm not. I don't like promoting myself. I don't like being intrusive, and I don't like asking other people for money. But the money that goes from YouTube and Patreon right now is going to be put towards FanFest and equipment for the site and stuff. But if I can increase it just a relatively small amount more, I mean, not. If I did, for instance, like doubled my money right now, which I'm not making that much between Patreon and YouTube, but if I could increase that, I would then be able to do a lot more things. I mean, not really. I would be able to increase the gear, go definitely without stress, go to the FanFest, and then also, you know, just not stress about money as much in my home life. Yeah, it will be fun. It will definitely be fun. It does not help that also when I see other people make a prop, like I saw someone else make a Stynian spear, and then I'm just like, well, now I'm not as interested in making it, which is it's a bad attitude, and it's not like one that I like or I think is good, but it is what gets stuck in my head. It's like someone else made it, why should I make it now? Which is also why I don't look at cosplay a lot, frankly, because it tends to, rather than make me inspired or interested, it tends to make me feel like frustrated with myself for not doing more. I definitely get what you mean. I know it's hard, but you should definitely promote it more. You definitely deserve it. Thank you. It's very easy to come across by thanking people or saying, look, oh, your nice words, blah, 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 blah. Sincerely, to everyone who's watching or everyone who's gone but has said nice things today, it means a lot, and it really matters, so thank you. And I'm definitely working on promoting more. I've gotten better. Not great, but I've definitely gotten better. At some point soon, maybe around 4,000 or 5,000 subs, I'm definitely going to maybe put out a post asking for more patrons, and here's why I'm asking, and here's what their plans are, and being very specific about it, and hopefully that will bump it up a little bit. But right now, I'm making roughly, I don't know, I would care about this, but I'm making about $100 a month from YouTube, from the views we get. And part of that is that as much as we get amazing growth subs-wise, like we've done so well in terms of consistent and constant growth, our view count is relatively low. It is. And part of that's a niche. Part of it is that I don't thumbnail well because I thumbnail in a very classic way instead of a really good thumbnail-y way. And I title kind of more utilitarianly than I do in a way that gets people to click. But as a course of time, hopefully that will continue to improve. I have the opposite problem. I see people doing something, I end up taking a ton of inspiration or wanting to do something similar, thus piles up the never-ending half-completed projects. Yep. Even if we're coming from different experiences of what happens with that, I totally hear you disconnect. And to be fair, that is true of me with things when I see things that are not things that I necessarily want to do and I'm really inspired by. So I still do relate to that as well. I think accepting praise and compliments is much harder being enough. Yeah. And it's something I struggle with myself, and it's clear you do as well. Yeah. And I'm hard on my sleeves. I have no problem bearing that out. I'm just kind of upfront about it. Like I'm not, I'm not going to be like, everybody needs to know every facet of my life, but I don't particularly care to be more private. I only care to necessarily be private in terms of things that are hyper required for safety or are in terms of people I care about or people in my life's privacies, because it's not my place to share their lives and information. But I'm very much prefer to be hard on my sleeve, and especially because more than a few times it has helped people to open up in their own right and feel heard. And I think that as someone who also, you know, we all want to be heard, right? Like we all want someone not to just listen. Sometimes people just want someone to listen, but a lot of us want to be heard and feel like someone's actively engaging with us. And so, you know, it's a lot by being like, yeah, here's what I struggle with, here's what I feel, blah, 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 blah. That's much more likely to be something that someone can relate to than being like, yes, I am person. Hi. I do things too. Okay, I got the mines. I got the campsite for the mines. The stone torch location. Okay, what am I missing? I know I'm missing. I got Unholy Air. I should get a kind of shot of the clutch itself. Spellman's Basin. Rat's Nest. Blackbrush Station. I did not get a thing with Blackbrush Station, or also the Hell's Brews Holes is kind of depicted as separate from Cutter's Cry, but geographically it really isn't. Okay, I'm just gonna go do one at Blackbrush Station. Do I want a shot from this angle, or do I want to see the bazaar and look at it? Well, it's important that it's a station, right? So like I've got to be able to see the station. So let's do this. Yeah. Oh no, I want to see NPCs. It's got to feel alive, damn it. Fair skies. Can't stick around since I've got to go to bed, but love your work. Keep on keeping on. Thanks, South Dane. Lovely to have you. Thanks for checking it out. All the view matters and your words matter. So thank you. I appreciate it. Have good sleep. I also mean that. Like, man, don't many of us know how we wish we could have a good sleep. Okay, and let that sit for a minute. Of note or interest around here to show. I have the Final Fantasy 14 logo. That's a 3D print that I made. Yeah, most of my other stuff is in storage behind me, and further behind me, locked away. Certainly don't mind you sharing. I'm reluctant to talk about myself because I don't want to come off as attention-seeking, but I also know it can help others who relate. Yeah. Honestly, that's why I haven't historically personally watched a lot of streams, is like, it's very hard for me to enjoy being around people if I'm not going to be able to meaningfully engage. And when other people are streaming, a lot of people, and especially if a lot of people are watching, you can't meaningfully engage with them because they have a responsibility to their game and their other audience viewers, and it's not about you. It's not. So I totally understand that. I'll say, especially in a setting like this, feel free to talk. Like, when there's only going to be like 10 people on, right, and it's relaxed, like, now's a great time. The other thing is, feel free to talk about stuff on, like, talk about stuff on the Discord, right? Like, that's why we, like, genuinely why we have the Discord. Don't be afraid of that. I mean, don't if you do not want to, but yeah, especially if it's low key like this. Like, to me, low key is about not stressing. It's not about stress about being low key. You know, like, you know, so feel free to, like, if there's something you want to talk about. And yeah, it's also hard, right? Because if you talk about something that's too personal and it feels like too much, either to the stream or to the other people, then like you worry, and then like it's really hard to like try to open up and be vulnerable if things go wrong, right? Like, that's why we're afraid of being vulnerable. I can stop recording that now. But yeah, no, I definitely huge proponent of, at the very least, trying to talk during times like this. Okay, so that should be everything. Oh, I should be naming things. Oh, please don't be a whole metric crap ton of stuff I've got to name. See footage. Oh, it's like a Lalafelian named. B-roll. B-roll 1. Copy. Name. B-roll 2. I'm also probably going to try to do more things like this while I'm working, especially like if I'm not focusing well and I'm just like, I know I'm gonna get an okay amount done. This is probably more valuable. Talking to you guys is more valuable, especially for community, building and relationship building, than just slamming my head against the wall in silence and maybe doing 10% more work than I would have been otherwise. But we'll see. I also definitely want to we're going to be having the community live stream events every week on Saturdays. But I hope that we can continue to get more stuff like that going. And also, my hope is that as time goes on, people will attempt to party up or create stuff, events to do together without necessarily being involved. But I mean, one, that takes socialization, which is hard, and it also, syncing up people, finding people, throwing out into the ether. Oh, does anyone want to do anything? And no one responding kind of sucks, So. Trying to limit my thought process to 200 characters is rough. Yeah, that's the other thing is I'm undervaluing how hard it is to try and have a meaningful conversation. One, when there's a delay, and two, I can just speak rapid, like put all everything I have, just let it flow out of my mouth, versus you guys having to respond by taking the time to actually type it, and that's hard. It is really hard. What is this? Oh, this is the Lalafelian. How do you spell it? Come on. That's not. What? Where did it go? Quiveron Mance. That's weird. It's called the Quiveron Mance. But that's like not a Lalafelian name. But it's all Lalafels there. Interesting. Lost Hope. I got Lost Hope B-roll. Lost Hope B-roll 1. Lost Hope B-roll 2. Roll. 2. Okay. Oh, Issa, you'll be so proud of me when everything actually has titles and is put together all nice and pretty. Sagoli Gate, right? Yeah, Sagoli Gate. For anyone out there who has played quite a few Final Fantasies, which one has your favorite music? Like, not best, just favorite. And also, more specifically, which one do you think is your favorite battle theme? And it can be spin-offs if spin-offs is your favorite. And let's say not 14, because 14... I mean, it may not even be 14, but 14 basically cheats with Soken. I mean, it cheats with Soken, and it has no Blue Maps going on, so... So my favorite is 10. But... I really love 13. 13 has an awesome OST and also a really banging soundtrack, or a really banging battle theme. So that when I search them in our database, it'll be easy to find. 7 is my favorite battle theme. Honestly, 10's music is probably my favorite. Yeah, 10 has an amazing OST. They're really goes along with the story. I wish that 15 was less of a mess, because Yoko Shimomura is carrying that game with the music at some points. Like, the music in that is fire. The overworld theme is amazing. But, like, I mean, if you played Kingdom Hearts, whatever you want to say about its story, its music is fire. 10 overall, because the absolute melancholic vibes are great. Yep. But battle music-wise, probably 8, 10, or 13. Yep. I totally feel that. 13, like, 10 has this beautiful bittersweet melancholy to it that is also deeply tied to its narrative. I adore 7, but I think 7 suffers, like its gameplay and graphics, from limitations of its time in a way that none of the others quite do. Like, 8 is rough, but it's not limited in the ways that 7 is. And so, like, as much as I love the MIDI and, like, style, you know, orchestral stylings in MIDI format that 7 has going on, like, and that in and of itself is valuable, 7 never quite spoke to me quite as much. But the vibe it's able to achieve sometime, like the otherworldly, unnerving vibe that it succeeds at sometimes, is just it's real good shit. Kingdom Hearts is such good music. Yeah, Kingdom Hearts is. If you don't think Kingdom Hearts is phenomenal music, whatever you want to say about its story, and I have things to say, whatever you want to say about its gameplay, and I have things to say, whatever you want to say about many other facets of it, Yoko Shimomura's music is phenomenal. There's just no... You can't listen to Distati and not be like, this is hype. This is hype as all shit. Suteki Dane, yeah. Still makes me cry 20 years later. You know, the ones that get me are Someday the Dream Will End. I should make a video. I've wanted to make another channel that's just about talking about, like, video game reviews and essays and stuff, but, like, I just haven't had time, and, you know, don't know if the viewer base is there for yet another dude talking about it. But Wandering Flame, and the way in which Wandering Flame and a couple of other themes are used at very specific moments and for characters is so powerful. The moment Tidus understands he's not going home and the truth about sin, and Auron's talking to him while you're in, not Luca, Luca Stadium. Yeah, I think Luca, right? Kilika. Yeah, Kilika's where Ifrit is. Luca. Yeah, so when you're in Luca and Auron's talking to him by the docks, and the way Wandering Flame plays, and he says sin is jacked, and the way in which you get to see the coming of age of Tidus is so great, and it's just so powerful and meaningful. And then you have Wandering Flame. Yeah, Wandering Flame's amazing. Mushroom Rock is great. The fact that they choose to open up with Otherworld the way they do, they open the game with that song, is amazing. And then it's functionally the final boss theme is amazing. I love the fact that if you realize that Someday the Dream Will End, the music that plays as you reach Xanarkand and are fighting through Xanarkand, and for the first time the music doesn't change even when you go into fights, is a version of Braska and Yuna's theme. And what that means, and the way and what Xanarkand represents to summoners and what it represents to them, and what it is just so good. It's so good. Oh, and B-Side Islands OST. Oh, he's still in my heart. Yeah, and I think that's the thing, right? Is one, music is amazing. Great music is one thing. Music appropriately used in one thing, but great music appropriately used is what makes music phenomenal. You look at Howard Shore and leitmotifs starring Lord of the Rings. You look at Soken's work, right? Like, not only is Soken's work fire, but the way in which things like Flow are used in Endwalker, the way in which Tomorrow and Taramaro is used in, it's the execution onto which these things are used. The way it not only is To the Edge, you know, the theme for the battle from 5.3, amazing in its own right, but what it represents for that character, what it means, the way in which it's used in that moment, this beautiful, tragic dirge that is both hype, but it's not like a Shadowbringer's like, oh, it's this, like, almost, it's not quiet, because it's a rock song, but it's almost slightly, like, quiet, melancholy dirge of a rock song at this perfect point in 5.3. Assault, the Wedding Crash theme, is also very good battle track. Yep, Hamazu does great work even outside the melancholic stuff, like B-Side and Wandering Flame. Yep. Just, oh. Good shit. I also just love J-Rock. Like, as a separate conversation, bands like Asian Kung Fu Generation and Sakana Action and Ogre You Asshole. No, that's the actual band's name, I'm not kidding. Just lovely. there's a vibe to this vibe to bands, to like J-rock bands, especially from the early 2000s, that especially old J-rock bands, and even into the 2010s and currently, that is just not captured by quite by any other like country's rock that I've experienced. There's sometimes a melancholy, but there's like a use of like reverb, not even distortion necessarily, but just like there's a vibe to it that is just not present necessarily, and it's not in all J-rock obviously, but like in a lot of it that is not. It's really, it hits me good. It hits me right. And I don't just mean like anime themes, like as much as like some of them I do really love it. It's not just that. Okay, that should be everything. So now, what was it? Same visual Kai heavy influence of my personality. Yeah. There's a lot of good music out there. There's a lot of good game music out there, that's for sure. How did I have my notes format? How's my script formatted? I go from Central Hydaelyn to Eastern, and then Eastern to South, and South to North. Okay. So we can go ahead and go to Eastern Hydaelyn. I'm just going to go ahead and fly there, because why not? The main composer for 10/13 Hamazu's other games, he's done like Sigma Harmonix, Alliance Alive, and the Dirge of Cerberus are very good OST was. Yeah, I haven't played Sigma Harmonix and Alliance Alive, but I'm aware of them. Dirge of Cerberus, I would describe Dirge of Cerberus personally as a flawed but fun game. Like, I actually enjoy playing that game. Time to Win This Slice is Right. Oh, I enjoy Slice is Right. I enjoy Slice is Right more than I enjoy the Typhoon one, because the Typhoon one is just luck. Whereas, like, Slice is Right, you can actually be skillful at it. The only part you can't control luck-wise is when it's the 1/3, 1/3, and 1/3. But I always just sit in the pile of gold and just wait, and I've never gotten hit by Ogoro? What is this? I forget what Yojimbo's dog's name is. I should definitely check out Sigma Harmonix and Alliance Live. That's a good call-out disconnect, thanks. There's also a lot of other OSTs that I'm sure are partly nostalgia, but I also just really love, like Dark Cloud. That's a game that if it doesn't get a spiritual remake or a remake of some kind, that is the idea of like the Georama and all that is something I would love to see brought into Togoro. Okay, thanks. I got a comment on the YouTubes. I really like the editing in this. That makes me feel good. Also, it's just. I never know what I'm going to do with the comments. Sometimes I open up my phone, it's like, oh, you've got a new comment, check it out. It's like, you got this lore thing wrong. Which, if I got the lore thing wrong, I feel bad, but I'm also like, oh, okay, you know, like, thank you for it. But then a lot of times people are like, oh, you got this lore thing wrong? And I'm like, I didn't. And then I go and check to triple check, and I'm like, nope, I didn't get this wrong. Your understanding is wrong. However, saying that in the comments and being combative is not going to be helpful, so a lot of times I don't necessarily respond to those comments in general, just let them be. But it's very interesting when people are very certain that just very certain about their opinion and their opinion is wrong, but very certain about their opinion and very certain about a fact and they're wrong, and then also feel the need to make sure the other person is called out for being wrong when they're right. But it's also weird even if they were wrong, because you can be constructive about it anyways. It's just very strange. I've actually been incredibly lucky for the amount of like positivity, and even like if corrections were needed, the amount of like things people have been overwhelmingly positive, especially for like a lore channel and stuff where people are very passionate about the subject matter. Yeah, I've but when I do get, that's why I feel bad about putting up the theory videos sometimes, is that, like, man, people sometimes get really aggro about those theory videos. It's just crazy. The cups can actually be semi-predicted. Interesting. I would definitely love to hear more about that. I enjoy making those theory videos, but boy, do they spark some heated debate, which is also kind of sad because they actually make me the most money by far because they get way more views and the comments actually promote them in the algorithm even more. So it makes me really sad that maybe most divisive videos I make are also the most profitable. It's not a good system. Okay. How do I have my notes ordered for Eastern Finland? Drybone, Welwick, Burning Wall, Sandgate. Yeah, that makes sense. Should probably start with Camp Drybone and then move into church. Let's get the lights up. No, it definitely needs to be from over here and then move over to the church, probably. Yeah. Let's try. Is this person trying to fly? Don't you have to beat a Realm Reborn to fly? Am I wrong? This person is a Sprout, and if you do have to beat Realm Reborn to fly, I want to tell them that. But I also beat, like, by the time they added flying, I had been done with Realm Reborn for over a year. What's the best way to show drive off? Yes, you do. Yeah, oh, theory videos are rough. Very promoted in, like, every community. A lot of media's lower presence in media is a lot of theory stuff for exactly those reasons. Yeah. Theory videos are rough / very promoted in, like, every community. Yeah. Yeah, like, you look at your Bellulars, right? Like, the reason that he's able to build that way is because of theory videos and stuff. It's just sad because I like engaging with the comments, but with the theory videos, I just typically don't, because not because it's like toxic, but because like it just the really weird thing is to me is when people vehemently disagree on something that is not objectively provable. Like they're like, oh, it absolutely can't be this because of Y reason, but Y reason is not a factual reason. It's just a reason that they don't like it, so they don't think it can be. Or people will be like very specific about it can't be this because of Y lore reason, when Y lore reason is explained within the lore and within Encyclopedia Eorzean Volume 1 and 2 and MSQ quests as like a thing to understand the thing, but not like people will say like astrologians and geomancers are just the exact same, so they obviously can't make geomancer as a class or as a job. And it's like, well, no, they operate under the same principle the same way that white mage and black mage operate under the same principle, but they're fundamentally completely different and do completely different things. Like, yeah, they both focus on drawing power from the star beneath their feet. And not to get overly defensive about the Geomancer one, because like there are some cogent points that people make about why it probably won't be Geomancer, but like there are some points that just are weird to me because they're so certain in their knowledge of the lore, but that's not what the lore says. As for the cups, there's a certain point where their position become locked where they'll be. I spend a little too much time in the saucer. Interesting. I'll try to be mindful of that. That, or I might just stick with my gold method, because as much as that's not how statistics works, it's consistently worked for me. Was very much thinking of WoW anime communities when I typed that. One Piece YouTube burns itself down monthly over the theory channels, it feels like. Yeah, I don't know much about the anime communities. I've never been deep a part of that. But I can speak to, you know, WoW, and, you know, honestly, the Soulsian community has done a pretty okay job at not burning itself down, though people do have dramas. I think it's partly because you have linchpins of that people respect, like you've got your bodies, but even then. Yeah, like, basically the truth is that you just can't expect to never have people... It's not even about disagreeing. I expect people to disagree with you. That's perfectly fine. But it's like, you can never avoid people who... assume you're coming from the worst possible place. And it's just, it makes me sad. And not just for me, it just makes me sad because I know that there are a lot of people out there who are defensive because they've been attacked, and because they're defensive, they attack other people first. And then it just creates a vicious cycle. Give me the clear skies! Okay, clouds will work. I lied, they won't work. There we go. Ugh, I don't like how much that blocks. Yeah, okay, this is better. Okay, I can work with that. Yeah, I like that. let me make sure the chat window's up. Okay. But yeah, one of the things is I do want to grow the channel, but I also don't want to sacrifice its soul. And I don't think it's that simple. It's not a binary. But the reality is that if I want to grow the channel to a certain point, or I think more importantly, if I want people to get to click on the videos, I need to figure out a way to up my game and maintain the sincerity and utilitarian level that I want, while also making the titles more clickable. And that's just a reality of business. That's just a reality of YouTube business. I mean, the truth is though, as much as I put hard work in, I've been incredibly lucky with the growth we've had, and super consistent, and then making some connections and friends in the YouTube creator space has been just lovely and really validating, because it's like when you start and you're doing nothing, right? It's like you don't think you're ever going to achieve any heights of anything. Like you dream and you want to and you aim to, but like having other people who are creating stuff that you respect also see you as a peer does a lot to validate. I'm just waxing, not even poetic, but just lackadaisically about about the things I've been. Do I need to go down here? Do I need another shadow camp drive? I probably should get another shadow camp drive. Let's see. Let's see. Let's G-pose. Yeah, that's not gonna work. No, that's pretty. Yeah. I like that. Okay. Hide all the NPCs. Let's let the sunlight in. Oh. Actually, what video was that person even commenting on? Her bounds, interesting. Oh, our subs went down. I wonder if it's because I'm streaming and people don't like the stream. Oh well. Watching you guys get these shots is fascinating, not gonna lie. Oh yeah? I find it, I don't want to say boring, but it's the process. Do we a macro shot? It's good to have a shot the full. Should probably just get 2 shots. Honestly, I appreciate the growing of the 14 lore community, even if it's slow growth. Eventually plan on running some 14 D&D with some people, so I'll take all the lore I can get. I will say, Isidoril has been in the back of his mind wanting to do a D&D campaign that he make a module out of Final Fantasy 14 for it, so that there's more than one person on staff, I think, who's interested in that idea as well, so you should rename Dry Bones. I wonder why we don't. I assume the reason that we dipped in subscribers, it's like the first time I've seen that happen in a long time. It's probably just people who didn't remember they were subscribed to us and then saw that I was streaming. That's always that's honestly part of why I haven't been streaming as much or very much at all, is because I know a lot of people who probably wouldn't like buy it. Like I don't watch streams, so like I get it, but also it's a really great way to talk to people and also get some views and all sorts of stuff. wide shot, and then close shot of the... Actually, I'm going to need 3 shots because I'm going to need the interior too, aren't I? That'll do nicely. Yeah, the other problem is I was talking about, like, with Genesis earlier. I have a hard time watching other lore YouTube channels for 14 for a couple of reasons. One of which is I can't. It'd be like watching. Imagine you're told that you need to write a game review, and then you go watch other game reviews about that game. It gets stuck in your head, and it's you gotta be. It's just. I don't want to plagiarize, and I don't like. It's just if once other people's stuff gets stuck in your head, it becomes all the harder to write my own stuff. And on top of that, you know, there's the you know, vain aspect of compare. Not even vain, just like comparison. Like I don't like comparing myself to other YouTubers. So like, Isidoro and Neri will often tell me about other groups, and I'll like reach out or talk to them or like all sorts of stuff. So I like still make connections, but then I don't have to like in a vacuum compare analytics or anything. Like I've been talking with the Eorzean archons lately, and I'm really excited. We're gonna do some stuff with them sometime soon. But I also got really, you know, lucky that, you know, Ginger Prime had me on and Popo Jigaimo had me on, and those were so lovely. And I talked with Popo Jigaimo for 2 hours during that interview, and then I talked with him for I think another 3 hours afterwards. Like it was a lovely, lovely conversation. So yeah. Alt F9. Okay, let's get close up from exterior, and then we need an interior shot. And because we already have one in here, let's get one from ground level. I want one from low down, so we need Neri. Don't want stones blocking the doorway. I need to make sure I see the whole thing. But if I go too wide angle, it makes it look tiny. Let's try this. I know I just lost all my height advantage, so. But, oh, right, that's why. Let's do a wide angle. Yeah. Okay, that should do. And set alarm again. I guess on the other hand, though, the people who are likely to unsubscribe if they see a stream from me is probably unlikely to stick around and watch stuff, so I wish them well. Oh my god, it's 1 a.m. Holy moly, jeezy crazy. Probably wrap up here soon then. How is Neri so freaking cute? It's a great question. Neri doing just about any emo is also pretty freaking adorable. systems. This is so cute. Oh my god, it's so cute. Just all of them. I'll do one more. Let me find one more cute one. Don't forget daylight savings time starts tonight. Right. I also need to be up for an interview in like 10 hours. So we'll go ahead and call it here then. So to all of you watching, thank you very much for hanging around, and I hope you had an enjoyable time as I meandered my way through some of the boring part of my work. And you'll hopefully see some of these shots show up in future videos, up and coming ones. I know, Ninieri is weaponized cuteness. There's a reason whenever I want to promote stuff on the YouTube channel, I use Ninieri rather than Elio or Isidoro. It's funny because whenever I talk to Ninieri, Ninieri knows it. So, with all that out of the way, thank you so much for watching and for being around and for your comments and thoughts. Hope to see you guys around soon. Don't forget that we have our streaming content on our streaming events every Saturday, usually at 6 p.m. CST to 8 p.m. However, that's variable. We also have new videos every Tuesday and Thursday, so feel free to make sure to check those out. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the little bell, because if you don't ring the bell, for some reason YouTube will not show you the video, even though you're subscribed. Like, comment, all the usual stuff. And if you're kind of interested in maybe tossing $1 or $2, check out our Patreon or check out our Discord if you'd like to talk with everybody else and become a part of the community. And not that you aren't already, by just checking out our stuff. If you need links to the Discord or the Patreon, they are at the bottom of any of our videos, so feel free to check those out. I had a great time chilling. Sleep well. Yes, sleep well to you too. So watch more streams like this. It's really chill and nice. Thank you very much. With that, cheers all.